kind of what we're going to talk about today. Thought it was appropriate. You guys know the drill. We've gotten our restriction taken care of. It's already out of the way today. So I think it has to do with like auto tapping or whatever else. But like, how do we get engagement if we can't, whatever. The auto tappers are sold in the TikTok shop. So you guys know the drill. Tapping is clapping. Liking is loving. Sharing is caring. We are in a constant fight to get out to the FYP. So anything you guys can do, that includes gifting. Gifting the algorithm likes. So there's a gifting goal today. There's also a subscriber goal as we're marching towards 200 subscribers. And so that we can do a subscriber-only event. So you can subscribe either here or the Facts HQ at FactsStillMatter.site. In both cases, the subscription price is as cheap as we can set it, friends. Check out the new merch in the merch store while you're over at Facts HQ. Also, don't forget about joining our Discord. Discord is our hub for information. A lot of the things we talk about on the show end up there. Also, we've got a massive amount of community links. Mental health services, as May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Don't forget about that. Please be sure your cup is filled first. Can't pour from an empty cup, right? Again, thank you guys for being here very, very much. A couple ways you can support the channel in addition to the gifts and subscriptions. My pay apps are above my head. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, they're all the same. It's Facts Still Matter. Again, thank you guys for being here. Really, really appreciate you. Hope your days are going well. I know they've been long. They've been inundated. And as we discussed earlier this week, be sure you are taking time for yourself so that your cup is filled. Thank you. All right. So big day today at the Supreme Court. Before we get into the topic of the day, but this speaks to what we're talking about. The Supreme Court is meeting to discuss the Trump administration's push to question the validity of birthright citizenship. So from what I've been reading today's hearing, although likely to touch on the constitutionality of birthright citizenship, it's going to be more about whether or not district judges have the ability to issue injunctions against the federal government. Because what we've seen is that district court judges, in many examples so far, doing their job as members of the judiciary, pushing back on executive orders and rhetoric from the Trump administration, questioning whether or not these decisions and/or EOs are in fact constitutional. So I'm sure they're going to touch on it. And remember, it's all persons born here are citizens here. So the Trump administration, again, from what I'm reading, is not necessarily, in their words, looking to eliminate birthright citizenship. They are just looking to control who gets access to it. We know we know what it is. So we'll be watching that. The opening arguments are today. I'm sure we have news hounds and folks that will be watching that with a keen eye as we kind of get through the course of the day. So everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. So, and I think that kind of speaks to what it is that I kind of want to talk about today, because we've got the budget out. We're going to get into some more of the ridiculous display. By the way, the Saudi government rolled out a mobile McDonald's for our president. That is so fucking embarrassing. Like, really? Really? And of course, he just soaked it up with his fat. Anyway, so we'll be watching that. So, and this speaks to the overall sort of, foundational element of what I want to discuss today. It's about the kind of society that we want to have. What kind of country do we want? Joe Biden said this best. Don't tell me what your budget is. Don't tell me what your values are. Show me your budget. And I think it's true. The more and more we start to peel this off, the more and more we know that no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. We know that wasn't in there. We know that the Commerce Committee has to cut Medicaid, even though they've lied to us and tell us that they're not going to. But yet there's increases in defense spending. There's increases in spending for Homeland Security. There's cuts to the Agriculture Department. There's cuts to labor. There's cuts to energy. There's cuts to education, obviously. I've been very vocal here about what I see. Obviously no system is perfect, but we've never invested in the things, in my opinion, that we should be. When we talk about the differences politically, it's more ideological. You are either for progress or you want to keep things the way they are, or in many cases, regress, turn back the clock. I mean, there are many members of the far right who believe that we should go back to a time pre-civil rights, pre-women's rights to vote, pre-same-sex marriage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's their push. So, and again, it comes down to the basic elements of the kind of society that do you want? Do you want children to be fed? I do. Is that really controversial? Do you want seniors to be able to stay in their homes with heat and or air conditioning, depending on where you live? I do. Do you want livable wages so that we're not continued, not to continue to fall behind in poverty? Do you want opportunities for universal basic income or a competitive minimum wage? I do. Do you want clean air? Do you want clean water? Do you want to control the amount of pesticides? By the way, Dow Chemicals has been because of regulations or deregulations, they can now put more pesticides that have been banned that cause all kinds of birth defects. By the way, Dow Chemicals gave $1 million to Trump during his campaign, but nothing to see here. No corruption at all. It's really, we complicate it sometimes, and I'm guilty of that. We complicate it because we look for the nuance, but it's really, it's basic. What do you want? Do you want those kinds of things? Case in point. So I was thinking about this because Bernie's been out on the road doing his thing, and Bernie's doing a local event in the beautiful Green Mountains this weekend. I'm going to attempt to get up there depending on how things go, and maybe see if I can. I think he'll recognize me. Pretty sure he will. I'm going to see if I can get some screen time with him. Who knows? I'm not counting on it. I'm still working on trying to get him on the show. By the way, the announcement about there's a Senate candidate in Maine who's running to replace Susan Collins. And even though I will be overseas next week, I'm still going to do that interview. It's likely going to be next Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. More to come on that. Anyway, so I was thinking about Bernie and his conversations about, the Broligarch tour, I should say the oligarch tour that he's been on with AOC. And one of the Bernie sort of made his hay nationally when he started talking about universal health care, Medicare for all. Okay, so I just want to read to you the basic principles of what's in Medicare for all, because we've heard about it, we've heard it thrown at us from the right that it's socialism and whatever it is. But at the end of the day, this is what it is. The Medicare for All Act. This is right from the summary from Bernie's website. The bill establishes a federal administered Medicare for All national health insurance program that will be implemented over a 4-year period. During the transition to universal health care in the first year, this legislation will immediately improve traditional Medicare for seniors and people with disabilities by covering dental, vision, and hearing aids, which are not covered under the current law. The Medicare eligibility age will be reduced to 55, and Medicare Part A, Part B, and Part D deductibles would be eliminated immediately. Who wants to argue with that? Who wants to say that that's a bad thing? We'll get there in a second. Moreover, during the first year, every child between the ages of 0 and 18 would become immediately eligible to enroll in the new Medicare for All program. There are millions of children in our country that do not have health care coverage, and millions of parents who don't either, which then would mean their children don't have coverage. A Medicare transition plan would also be established during year 1 to provide affordable coverage for all Americans and to make sure that no one loses their coverage. During the second year of implementation, the Medicare eligibility age would be reduced to 45. During the third year, the eligibility age would be lowered to 35. So you're stepping into this program. By the fourth year, every individual, in 4 years, every individual who's a resident of the United States, will be entitled to benefits for comprehensive healthcare services and will get a Medicare for All card that they can use to receive the healthcare that they need. Patients will have the freedom to choose their doctors, hospitals, and other health providers without worrying about whether that provider is, quote, in network, right? They will also be able to get the care they need without having to read any fine print or try to figure out how they can afford out-of-pocket costs. Under this bill, Americans will benefit from the freedom and security that comes with finally separating health insurance from employment. As is the case in every other major country, employers would be free to focus on running their businesses rather than spending an enormous amount of time, energy, and money trying to provide health insurance to their employees. If anybody's ever worked for corporations in HR or in benefits or things like that, it is a daunting task in an attempt to try to provide coverage for people, right? This Medicare for all, that just goes away. For small businesses, like you want to provide insurance coverage for your employees, many of you can't. We've talked about this before. We've talked about this before, and here we are, situation where Medicare for all, you wouldn't have to worry about this. People stay in jobs that are just horrible in many cases, right? We see productivity decline because people are in these dead-end jobs, as they've been called, primarily so that they can have health insurance. And as a small business owner myself, I'm on the ACA. It's certainly not perfect. It's better than nothing. But again, it's expensive, and I cover my kids, and it's extremely expensive, right? And I'm looking at that every single month. I'm thankful that they have coverage, but this is another example. Further, our overall economy will benefit when working people no longer stay at jobs they dislike simply because of the health benefits they will receive from their employers. Every American, including those with serious or chronic illnesses, will be able to afford the medications necessary to keep them healthy without the worry of financial ruin. Americans will no longer worry that a hospital stay or a medical emergency will bankrupt them or leave them deeply in debt. Today, we have the most expensive, bureaucratic, wasteful. By the way, this is Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan. This is what it's always been. This is the model that he wants to, that we should be using. And again, years ago, this used to be considered extreme, folks. This used to be considered radical. Okay? Radical. Today, we have the most expensive, bureaucratic, wasteful, and inefficient healthcare system in the world. Number one in cost, 42nd in outcome. Not only do we heavily outspend all other countries on healthcare, our medical spending continues to grow much faster than the rate of inflation. At a real danger to our economy, the United States now spends more than 18% of our GDP on healthcare. If we maintain the current dysfunctional system that we now have, it has been estimated that we will spend as a nation more than $60 trillion over the next decade on healthcare. So I'd like to say that we can certainly afford it, considering Medicare for all would be exponentially cheaper than what we spend now, and we'll get better outcomes. That would be 60 trillion with a T. I just look at that number and it blows me away. All right. Medicare for all would fundamentally change that by creating a far simpler, more efficient, and more cost-effective system. Instead of wasting hundreds of billions of dollars trying to administer an enormously complicated system of hundreds of separate insurance plans, there would be one single payer. One insurance plan for the American people with one single payer, the government. Negotiating with pharmaceutical companies to lower prices. One of the reasons, and again, this is the whole hypocrisy of the executive order that Trump signed. I'll get into that in a second, because don't forget, Stephen Miller called Kamala Harris a communist because she wanted to go after price gouging. And now guess what? They're doing that. Funny. One of the reasons the United States spends far more on healthcare per capita than any other nation is that we pay, by far, the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. This would substantially reduce the cost of prescription drugs for both the government and individuals by doing what every other major country on earth already does: negotiate with pharmaceutical companies to lower drug prices. This legislation will give the federal government the ability to stand up to drug companies and negotiate fair prices for the American people. This is the coverage, okay? Now, as you're going through this, all right, I want you to think about the freedom and the peace of mind that Medicare for all, again, based on what we know, we in our country, because of the middleman, insurance companies, and everybody that's got to get paid, are going to spend $60 trillion over the next decade on healthcare. $60 trillion. An industry that is going to be making nearly $2 trillion in profit. Okay? Legislation, water up. All right. This legislation will provide comprehensive healthcare coverage that includes hospital services, including inpatient and outpatient hospital care, 24-hour-a-day emergency services, and inpatient prescription drugs, ambulatory patient services, primary and preventative services, including chronic disease management, prescription drugs, biological products, and medical devices, mental health and substance abuse disorder treatment services, laboratory and diagnostic services, reproductive care, including AB, contraception, and assistive reproductive technology, maternity and newborn care, gender-affirming health care, dental health, audiology and vision services, rehabilitative and habilitative services, including devices, emergency services, including transportation, ambulances, Pediatrics, including early and periodic screening, diagnosis, and treatment. Necessary transportation to receive healthcare services for persons with disabilities, older individuals with functional limitations, and low-income individuals. Services provided by licensed marriage and family therapists for a licensed mental health counselor. Home and community-based long-term services and supports. Any item or service described above that is furnished using telehealth to the extent practicable. Does anybody have an issue with any item on that list? Can you imagine? Can you imagine the amount of, can you imagine the reduction in stress? And this is when I say, I don't want little bites of the apple. I don't want expansions to the ACA. I want to, it does include dental. Yes, it does include dental. It does include dental. By the way, I don't want more expanded access to the ACA. I want universal coverage, healthcare. I want Medicare for all. Exactly. I want the whole, it's got vision as well, Bruce Wayne's mom. Vision as well. Vision and dental health, audiology, and vision services. Dental health, audiology, and vision services. Mental health, substance use disorder, reproductive health care, medical devices. No worrying about if your doctor's in or out of network. Doctors can treat patients. Patients can get care. Right now, we go from here, patient, doctor, and then we go like this. And everybody's got to get paid. Talk about waste, fraud, abuse. And remember, we talked about this yesterday. United Healthcare, one of those insurance companies, their shareholders are suing the company because after their CEO was killed by Luigi, they didn't change their forecasts, so their profits dropped. And the shareholders are suing the insurance company because they are now, positively accepting and approving more claims. I mean, come on. We pay premiums, and we are one of the biggest cost centers in the U.S. insurance system is to pay for people who don't have insurance. Allegedly, right? Allegedly, exactly. That's one of the biggest cost centers. So how could anybody be opposed to that? Again, hospital services, ambulatory, primary preventative services, prescription drugs, mental health, lab services, reproductive care, maternity and newborn care, gender affirming health care, dental health, audiology, vision, rehabilitative, emergency services, pediatrics. You get the idea. Under this legislation, Americans will no longer have to pay premiums, co-payments, or deductibles to private health insurance companies that put profits over the needs of the American people. Instead of writing a big check to private health insurance companies, most Americans and businesses would be paying a much smaller percentage of their income to fund Medicare for all. There are guesstimates that on average, the American family will save between $10,000 and $12,000 a year. Our taxes go up. That's how we pay for it. Okay. I have no problem with that whatsoever because the math is the math. If somebody can find me, I've said this before, you find me one social and or economic argument against universal health care, I'll delete my account and you'll never see me again. Because there is none. And the people who would benefit the most in many cases are people who are in underserved communities now that don't have access to health care. And a lot of times they're rural communities, right? Large chunks of conservative voters because they've been told the lie that it's socialism. Keeping our promise to veterans and Native Americans. Nothing in this legislation will impact the eligibility of veterans for the medical benefits of the services provided under the VA, TRICARE, or Native Americans for the medical benefits and services provided by or through the Indian Health Services. Those benefits will remain the same. Guaranteeing health care is a right. It is important not just from a moral and economic perspective. It will also happens to be what the majority of the American people want. In 2021, 71% of the American public supported providing Medicare and or universal health care to everyone. Right? What's the argument? Corruption first, America last. I've even seen some people in the comments saying we can't afford it. How can we not afford it? It's about your priorities. So again, the math is simple. Your copays go away, your premiums go away, your deductibles go away. All that goes away. You pay more in taxes, but you pay less out of pocket every single month. Annually. I think it's between $10,000 and $15,000 annually that the average family would save. If you want private insurance, go buy private insurance. If you want access to specialty treatment, then go buy it. But this covers everybody. And then, again, how do you pay for it? I think you increase taxes. We know that the Trump tax cuts, this is what we're going to get into in just a minute. We know what the new budget looks like. We know they want to increase spending to defense and homeland security. They want to cut corporate taxes again from 35 to 21%, which is what it was in the TCJA, and they want to continue it. And now we have some details, again, because they got to pay for it somehow, that the lower tax brackets gradually see a tax increase over the next 10 years, just like it was the first time. And we still have American children starving. And we still have people in our country, I think the guesstimates are around 75 to 80,000 people who in America, richest country on earth, who lose their life because a medical condition that they have that could easily be treated. They don't have insurance, they don't go to the doctor, and they die early. Make it make sense. How is that something that we should be signing up for? I mean, I'm not, you're not. The majority of us aren't. Again, this is the type of society that you want to have. And I don't even think this is about whether or not you care about others. I mean, I'd like to think that's the driving principle, but it makes too much sense fiscally. We would save trillions of dollars. We would increase productivity. You would have people staying at jobs longer because they wouldn't or they wouldn't have to worry about productivity loss for people having to take time off because they can't get family medical leave, or they're worried about patient coverage, or they're going to work sick. It's amazing to me that we're still fighting over table scraps. We have somebody like RFK who's driving the bus. So this goes back to what I kind of wanted to talk about today. And everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. Appreciate you guys. Now we're 39K. Let's see if we can get to 100K within the next 20 minutes or so. And don't forget, there's a gifting goal today. Please consider subscribing here. And please don't forget about the Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. It's all FactsStillMatter. Right? It sounds good. Why would we not want to do it? Why would we not want that? Why would we not be demanding it? 70%. Oh, I know why. Follow what, friends? Follow the fucking money. Because think about these companies and these corporations. Think about where the money comes from. Hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars from pharma, from big health, from the medical device companies, from everyone in the middle, donating to campaigns, being lobbied. I talked about this before. K Street in DC, if you've ever been there, it's one of the richest addresses in America. It's because it's loaded with lobbyists that are there on behalf of big oil, big pharma, big tech, health insurance, et cetera, et cetera. All those people have fabulous insurance. Members of Congress have insurance for life. Citizens United, Neil. That's what it all comes down to. You're absolutely right. They have the best insurance plan in the world, best coverage, access to the best doctors, pension. They're fine. They're totally good. They're fine. So which brings me to Ted Cruz, because again, now we're starting to see the details of the healthcare plan. And if you're like me and you pay attention to the little things that people say, well, this is some of the little things that Ted Cruz has said. Now, I want you to listen to something, because again, the GOP has gone on the record and said, we're not cutting Medicare, Medicaid. We're not cutting it. We're not going to touch your benefits. Well, we know the math ain't mathing, because the Commerce Department, who's responsible for it, has an $883 million that they need to cut. And the only way they can do it is to cut benefits. Okay? And they're going to tell you that they're not going to do it. They're going to lie to you. Well, listen to what Ted Cruz has to say. He's going to tell us the truth right out loud. All right, this is Ted. He's being interviewed on News Nation. I don't know the name of the reporter, but this is his pitch on Medicare. Medicaid.
And Medicaid and cuts in SNAP benefits, whatever the cuts come, how hard is it going to be for Republicans to defend all these things you just talked about when there's still those tax breaks in there?
So let's take those one at a time. If you look at Medicaid, so there are not cuts in Medicaid, significant cuts in there. What there is.
You heard it. Not cuts in there, not significant cuts. You heard it. There's the tell. Senator Ted Cruz, best health care in the world, 24/7 access, best doctors, no deductibles, the best health care in the fucking world. You heard it.
Is a work requirement for Medicaid. Now, I think a work requirement for Medicaid is a very good thing.
We already have one, by the way.
To take care of the truly needy, of really vulnerable people with severe disabilities, people who are very aged. And what happened under Barack Obama is they expanded Medicaid to young, healthy adults. And so what the House has done, which I've been advocating for a long time, is if you're a young, healthy adult, you should be working and you shouldn't be getting Medicaid and sitting at home just getting a government check. Putting a work requirement,
Ted,
I think is incredibly beneficial. If you look at welfare reform, which we passed in 1995, it produced millions of people going back to work. And I think putting a work requirement, I don't view as a cut in Medicaid. It's a positive incentive.
I don't view it as a cut in Medicaid, but it is a cut in Medicaid. Again, the little tells that they tell us every single day, I don't see it as a significant cut. Well, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. By the way, any cut is a cut. To pay for your tax breaks, to pay for your subsidies to corporations, to continue to hand out, talk about welfare, to continue to, thank you, Marilyn, you're very kind, continue to hand out welfare and government subsidies to corporations who don't need it, right? Exactly. There are real people on the other side of those cuts. Exactly. That's what this comes down to. Hey, Anachronista, good morning. We can go back and we can dissect, where we can get cost savings and the like. And I think no one would be opposed to really rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. Let's just start with the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, and the current president. So I compiled just some high-level data on some of the wasteful spending that we are now seeing under the direction of the current administration. And I did a little bit of comparison. So let's talk about the amount of money American taxpayers are spending on Donald Trump's various hobbies. And then you tell me that we can't afford universal health care. Okay? All right, let's see. Total cost to taxpayers from Trump's golf outings. As of early 2025, Trump's golf trips alone have cost the American taxpayer. Anybody want to take a guess? Anybody want to take a guess? Give me a round number. So what do you think that number might be? So this is from the inauguration day to yesterday. Anybody want to take a guess as to how much? 40, 80, 54, 54 million, 30 million, 250, 24. You guys are right in the middle. $144 million. American taxpayers so far. In his second term, the expectation is that will increase by 25%. American taxpayers, okay? People who voted for him to save us money are suddenly fine with the American taxpayer funding his golf trips. You know how we've said before, there's no reasoning with the hive mind of the Trump voter. They will attempt to say, well, he needs a vacation. I did a comparison to Joe Biden, by the way, on his expenses. The only thing that Joe Biden ever really did was go to his beach house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. That cost the American taxpayers $11 million over 4 years. Total for Trump, $175 million in golf trips alone. Okay, another $26 million in various expenses, specifically to, Super Bowl appearances, NASCAR, whatever it might be. The proposed parade, is 92 million. That was in 2018. And this time they're saying the proposed parade, because he still wants to do that on his birthday, June 14th, a month from yesterday. That's going to be $100 million. So do we want to say that we can't afford universal health care? The American taxpayer is funding Donald Trump's ability to cheat at golf. I read this great book by John Feinstein. Is that his name? Could have been his name. He's a sports writer. And he talked about, and he did the comparison between people who cheat at golf and people who cheat at life. And they talk about the boardroom, right? You're looking around the table and you've played golf with everybody here and you know that they use the foot wedge, or you know that they lost a ball. They just happen to have one in their pocket and, I found my ball. They say those people who cheat in the golf course are likely having extramarital affairs and or are cheating on the books, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So once again, you can do the math. Millions of dollars on the American taxpayer to fund Trump's golf outings. That doesn't even include monies that he is charging the federal government to house Secret Service or whatever that might be. Stiffing local municipalities and communities for security and then not paying them. He still owes Burlington, Vermont money from a 2016 campaign stop. Okay? There are still cities across the country that he owes money to. So again, don't tell me that we can't afford universal health care. All right? Okay, so I did a little bit more digging, and I kind of wanted to talk about this from a fiscal perspective because we've got budgets now. All right, so the argument that the conservative right has made, we hear this whole lie about, and I want to dispel this myth right now. You cannot be fiscally conservative and socially liberal. You can't be. I used to think I was that way as well because I am fiscally conservative in my house, right? When you don't have money, you can't spend any. When we're talking about politics at the corporate, at the federal level, you cannot be fiscally conservative and socially liberal, because when you're fiscally conservative, that means you are really, really, cutting here, cutting there, and therefore the things that get cut the most are the social programs that we all support. Remember, we talked about this earlier. It all depends on the kind of society that you want. I want to overspend in public education. I don't want a single child in our country to go to bed hungry. Not one. Wow, fucking radical, Steve. Yeah, I know. I don't want women to have to die on operating tables because they can't get access to health care. I don't want members of marginalized communities, in particular BIPOC communities, that don't have access to health care because of gentrification and whatever else. I'm sick of it. I want teachers paid what they should be paid. I want clean water. I want clean air. I don't want pesticides on my food. And I want to tax the rich. Wow, that is so fucking radical. That's the kind of society I want. So what's the opposite of that? You don't want clean water. You don't want clean air. You don't think teachers should be paid more. You want to cut funding for public education. You want to cut access money to public health. You want to make sure that the corporations are taken care of at the expense of the middle class. That is the Republican budget. Remember, don't tell me what your values are. Show me your budget. Okay? Again, I know it's too far out there. It's think about that though. Let's remove the D and the R and the liberal and the conservative and the red and the blue, and let's just talk about it from a practical perspective. There are people in our country that want clean water, clean air, access to affordable college. I think public university should be free, by the way. That's a different conversation, but I really feel that way. Public education in general. I want overfunding to public education. There are people in our country that believe that women should have rights to their body. The LGBTQIA community should be recognized for the people that they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are people that don't support those things. But again, the overwhelming majority of people believe in those radical ideas of clean water, clean air, public health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then millions of dollars in debt, in medical debt, causing people to lose their homes because we have not made a commitment to ensure the fact that all of our country is insured. Corruption first, America last. There was a recent report that came out of, I think it was Finland. Again, we can't compare economically, but we can certainly look at what they've done. That country has made a commitment. The most important thing in their society is education. They have the best schools in the world. They have some of the healthiest people on earth. They have a progressive approach to education. They spend very little time in classrooms, and when they do, it's not in rows. Like, you guys know why. You all know this because you're the smartest chat on TikTok. You all know why we have our students sit in rows, don't you? It's the assembly line model. It's the manufacturing model. We're going to manufacture these minds. They have open classrooms. They dedicate a large chunk of their day to play, and they're some of the happiest people on earth, even though it's cold as shit and dark half the year. And then they invest in public health. And then they have made it, same thing in the UK, same for any country that has universal health care. They've made this decision to say, we are going to invest in our people. What a wild ass fucking concept. We are going to invest in our people. We don't do that. We don't do that. We just don't do it. We do not invest in our people. We invest in things. We blame the system that we don't support. The right likes to point to the fact that our education scores have plummeted, and they have. Not everywhere. Shocker, the states that have the best academic performance are the states that spend money per capita, per student on education, primarily blue. The same states that have these Ivy League indoctrination factories, the same states that a lot of those hypocritical Republicans colleges that they went to and graduated from, and now, bite the hand, what's the expression? Spite that, I don't even know it. Bite out the nose to spite the face. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the spending specifically because we're starting to get more data. And we'll get into some of the other subtleties that the Republicans are trying to, in the darkness of night, under cover of the night, they're trying to slide through. And then we'll talk about more hypocrisy. And I'm going to connect the dots a little bit more with an interesting deal that Trump just signed with the Qatari government, a $1.5 trillion investment, hours after he was gifted a jet, but nothing to see here at all. Okay, this is Trump's deficits, federal budgets and budget deficits and the national debt during his first presidency, okay? Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which they want to continue. And I remember tax legislation is 10 years. And it was by design so that only one presidential administration could pass new tax legislation. But because he lost in 2020, we're now around again where his administration is going to be able to execute another debilitating tax policy favoring the rich. Largest tax overall in decades, signed into law, this is the TCJA, signed into law December 2017. Reduced the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, chopping it down again down to 15%. Offered temporary tax cuts for individuals and permanent cuts for businesses, which is exactly what we saw the first time, which is what we're going to see again. It cost $1.9 trillion. That's the cost because, again, you remove revenue. And the argument was you want your tax cuts to be paid for. They never were. They never were paid for. And then critics argue favored corporations and wealthy individuals without paying for itself, which we know. Increased defense spending every single year, from $606 billion in fiscal year 2017 to $721 billion in fiscal year 2020. $125 billion increase in 4 years. In response to COVID, Congress passed the CARES Act, which, again, I don't blame President Trump for that. I'm glad that they I'll give him credit that it was quick that they turned that money around because it was necessary. I don't blame him for COVID. His response to COVID was ridiculous, and the rhetoric, it cost people's lives, much like I can't blame Joe Biden for COVID spending. I think we can all agree on that. CARES Act put $2.2 trillion in the budget. The PPP loans, which, again, members of the Republican Party complain about these student loan relief, and yet they didn't have to pay back their PPP loans. Hypocrisy, though. And then direct stimulus checks of up to $1,200 per adult. Then it went down to $600. Total pandemic-related spending under Trump was his final year was nearly $3 trillion. Federal budget deficit in fiscal year 2016, the deficit was $585 billion, and then it went to $984 billion in fiscal year 2019, and after 2020, it was $3.1 trillion, and then the continuation of spending into 2021, $2.8 trillion. Deficits were already rising pre-COVID. COVID-19 blew the deficit to historic highs not seen since World War II. Debt at the start of the Trump term, January 2017, was $19.9 trillion, and debt at the end of his term in January 2021 was $27.7 trillion. That's an increase of $7.8 trillion. Largest increases in history. Again, COVID has to account for some of that, surely. But we know prior to COVID, he was already on pace to outspend any administration's four-year term. Despite campaign promises to eliminate the national debt, Trump's policies, especially the tax cuts, significantly increased it. Trump did not propose major entitlement reforms like the Social Security or Medicare, and he increased military infrastructure spending. So again, deficit spending. Depends on what you want to spend your money on. Here's a scenario for you. I thought about this morning. If you have $100,000 to spend, all right, I'm going to ask you guys to think practically, not with your magic wand, but practically. If you've got $100,000 to spend, you can either go out and buy a shiny new RV and travel the country, or you can spend that money on your house to improve it. What's the better investment? Your house, obviously, right? Obviously. Deficit spending there's nothing wrong with deficit spending. It has to do with how you are spending your money. Joe Biden reduced the deficit because of the type of spending that he spent money on. Infrastructure, CHIPS and Science Act, that gets return on investment, which means that contributes to a reduction in the deficit. When you don't do that, when you increase spending on defense and then you cut taxes, you remove revenue, increase spending, the deficit goes up. Trump did not propose major, I did that one. His administration oversaw both structural deficits and emergency pandemic relief, compounding long-term debt concerns. U.S. federal budgets during his presidency went from, again, it increased exponentially from 2016's budget to the end of his term in 2027, $7.7 trillion added to the budget. All right. I did a comparison for you. So I compared, again, I'm using this now because this is what we are going to be dealing with again. All right. Increase in national debt by U.S. president in trillions of dollars. George W. Bush, $5.8 trillion, 8 years, 2 wars. Barack Obama, $8.6 trillion, economic recovery, 8 years, 2 terms. Joe Biden, $6.2 trillion, COVID recovery, investments in infrastructure. And then Donald Trump, $7.8 trillion. Similarly, so he has the most spending, more than Bush, more than Obama, and they both had 8 years, 2 terms. So the model is there, right? We've got the model. We know that what the Tax Cuts and Job Acts did, it reduced revenues, and we can point to how they spent their money the first time. It wasn't investing in America. It wasn't, investing in infrastructure. It wasn't, investing in technology. It was tax cuts for the rich, increase in military spending. Boom. Okay. I talked about that. I talked about the parade. Talked about that. Okay. Personal travel, I covered that. Government, so here's a little bit more Mar-a-Lago visits. So again, macro level, Republican budgets, in particular the Trump administration's budget, are to cater and pander to the rich, corporate subsidies, more corporate welfare, reduce the corporate tax rate from 35 to 21% the first time. Now they want to go from 21% down to 15%. Remember that visual from the inauguration, right? Everybody's standing behind him. All the billionaires and soon-to-be trillionaires are all benefiting from his tax breaks. Those that are anti-union, he supports them and they're pushed to be anti-union. All those people, all pharmaceutical company reps, big oil reps, healthcare reps, all standing there cheering him on. You go. We love you. Nope. That's not. Do real quick. She'll do an announcement for you guys, and I'll be right back. Good morning, my friend. How are you? Hello.
Hi. Good morning.
I'll be right back.
Sounds good. Good morning. You all know that I'm here to remind everyone to please support our fabulous hostess with the mostest. He's our beguiling, bodacious broadcaster, brawling, bratty blowhards, and he's here every day with that fiery feral fist for freedom, bringing you facts over feelings because facts still matter, and they always will. So, if you have the means, let's help Fax meet his gift goal and subwaves. You can find the pay apps in the link tree of his bio, as well as the Fax HQ and Discord link. You can reach the HQ via FactsStillMatter.site, where you can view and purchase merch. There's lots of new merch in there, so check that out when you have a chance. Now, if you're just looking for that fun-free forum for the Facts family to frolic, then Discord is the place. If the link in the bio doesn't work, try to copy and paste it into a browser or Google. And if that still doesn't work, reach out to a moderator and we'll hook you up. When you join, please open a ticket. There's a couple quick questions, and if you need assistance with that, then ask in the unverified lobby and we'll get you verified. The mutual aid channel of Discord has a few folks looking for some extra help. If you can spare a few extra dollars, please consider doing so. No amount is too small. It all adds up. Now, if you haven't already, click that follow or heart me up at the top of the screen next to Fax's name. You can join the team for the cost of a penny. You can do this every day, and it helps to keep us relevant and on the FYP. The main thing that we ask of y'all is to interact in the comments, as well as tapping your little hearts out. It's always free to tap and share out the live. If you don't have any friends, just click the copy link. It works the same as a share, and no one will be the wiser. Also, one-cent gifts, such as the rose or corn or lightning bolt, those all help out the algorithm as well. When you have a chance after this live stream, head on over to YouTube and subscribe to Facts Still Matter there as well. You can rewatch shows for any information you missed, and subscriptions on YouTube are free, just like following your favorite creators here on TikTok. Lastly, be kind, smile at a stranger, and have a fuck your feelings kind of day.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you very much. Please take your flowers for the work that you do here and out in the world for helping kids stay healthy. I appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you.
All right. So just a little snapshot. I pulled this from Forbes on CNBC because we're talking about, the cost of living, right? So this is, and again, as we discuss, my belief is that public colleges and universities should be free. I firmly believe that. There's no reason it shouldn't be. And if you want to have the argument that trade school should be free as well, I totally agree with that too. We can afford it. This is inflation rates. Okay, this is inflation in college tuition and the U.S. Consumer Price Index since 1983. So this is the percent change in the CPI from 1982 through December of 2024. So a long chunk of time. I'll go from the bottom to the top. Okay, apparel has increased 34%. Cars has increased 76%. Coffee is up 143%. Gas up 192%. Sweets up 200%. CPI overall up 225%. Housing up 248%. Medical care up 486%. And college tuition, are you ready for this one? 899% in 40 years. So the argument can be made that colleges and universities are ripping off the American taxpayer. There's no doubt about it. I believe the opportunity is there. Goes back to the premise of today's show. What kind of society do you want to have? I want one where we can educate and feed and clothe and provide shelter for our kids. Wow! You commie, Steve? What a fucking communist, because I want to feed people. I want to clothe them. I don't want them living in squalor. I want them access to health care. Inflation again, college tuition, 899%. That's the inflation since 1982. That has to change. We have, especially when we're doing away with federal, Pell Grants and FAFSA and, access to guaranteed loans from the federal government, that is predatory. Let's call it what it is. Exactly. Thank you, Eve. Feed the needy, not the greedy. That's a shirt. Exactly. Is it such a wild concept? Can you literally, if you are a red hat wearing Trumper and you're sitting in you're polishing the nuts on your truck, can you walk inside and say, you know what? I don't give a fuck if kids are starving. I want to make sure that Elon and his bros get a tax break. Can you really do that? Can you, after you've gargled on your truck nuts, can you walk inside and look yourself in the mirror and say, I am opposed to funding to provide children food. I am opposed to making sure that children have access to clean water and clean air. I am opposed to making sure that children have access to health care because I want the oligarchs, the broligarchs, because they might pay their tax breaks. How fucking ridiculous does that sound? Can you imagine, when the aliens come to take us away? Please do. Right here. I'll tell you where I live. I'll send you the address. And they're looking at our society and they're saying, wait a minute. These guys are supposed to be the richest nation on earth? Wait a minute. They're the ones that are supposed to be the greatest country on earth and their kids are starving? What? There are people who are living in Wait a minute. The number one cause of death for children under the age of 18 is firearms? Wait, what? Hold on a second. Wow, they surely have a lot of billionaires. And wait a minute, they have this economic system where they continue to allow their billionaires to make more money, and their children are starving. And veterans who put their hand up to serve their nation are living on the street, and they have an epidemic of substance use disorder, and there are people homeless because they can't afford their medical bills? What? I mean, fucking wild concept to think about that. Again, what kind of society do you want to have? Who do you care about? Who do you love? Who's your why? So then you can ask remember how we're looking for these tactics and strategies to talk to our friends or family on the right if you're still engaged? Ask them that question. Can you look yourself in the mirror and say that you don't want to support funding to make sure kids eat? Pro-life? Or is it just because you hate trans people so much and you hate brown people so much? Which is it? Put them on blast. What, do you have insurance at work? Yeah, I do. Okay, what would happen if you lost your job? Well, I just go find another job. Okay, what if they don't offer insurance? How about you don't have to worry about that? How about you can truly pursue the American dream if you decide you want to go into business for yourself? You want to open up your own small business. You know what you don't have to worry about? You don't have to worry about healthcare. Fucking wild concept. This shit drives me crazy. It just, for years, we have been pulling at scraps, almost begging and pleading, alms for the poor, sir, our elected officials, to give us enough. Listen, government has to step in when capitalism fails. That's government's job these days. Capitalism could certainly provide universal health care for everyone. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. They don't. The lie that has been told for decades from the fiscally responsible party is that corporations will look out for you. It will trickle down. Never has, never will. Never had. Okay, I want you to think about this because it's all related. The trade war that our president lost again. Okay, no need to crank up to tariffs to 145% on China. Okay, so they were starting to read the tea leaves. Ships were empty, right? No trucks can go out. It comes in full, comes in full, it's empty, then leaves full, right? The idea behind that. So what did they do? So they've now convinced the American people, okay, their voters, that we won the trade war because your prices are only going to go up a little bit. And those manufacturing jobs aren't coming back. They never were. That was never the goal. So 145% tariff goes to what? 30% across the board now with China? So again, because tariffs are paid by the consumer, the prices go up, say 30%. And that's a win? Who makes the money? Corporations, because they'll be able to sell it and say, you know what? Again, short-term pain, long-term gain. It's more palatable. It's more palatable. The prices will only go up 30%. Corporations make more money because they know consumers will figure out a way to spend more because they, again, like we talked about yesterday. Let me see if I can find this picture again. This is what's happened inside the cult mind, right? People will walk to the gas pump because Trump has told them that it's $1.98. They'll pay $3.24. They'll still believe it's $1.98. Same thing now with prices only going up 30%. They'll say, hey, see, prices were up 145%. Now they're only up 30. And they will call that a fucking win. That is crazy. And they don't want us to have universal health care or clean water or clean air. And they're fine with us, receiving a gift from the Qatari government. Let's talk about that a little bit because we've got a little bit more, inside baseball. Everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. We're not at 100K yet, guys. We've been here for an hour. Let's go. Let's get moving. You're right. Yeah, Zazo, the prices are never going to go back down. That's not how capitalism works. They're not going to go back down. Prices are going to go up. We just talked about this. Apparel, cars, coffee, gas, sweets, housing, Medicare, tuition, all up hundreds of points over the last 40 years. Do we think it's going to go down? Do you think your truck nut polish is going to get cheaper? No, it's just not going to be as expensive as it was 2 days ago. Do you think your red hat is going to be cheaper? No. That's not how it works. You might have to let your truck nuts rust. Sorry to tell you. I know the truck nut polish. Corruption first, America last. So more behind the story of let's stay on the topic of pharma first because we know that RFK has, we know who he is, right? There's a great Jubilee with Dr. Mike, I think his name. I've seen the series Jubilee. It's on YouTube. It's a series. They have one. It's called Surrounded, right? Charlie Kirk is sat in there. You've seen atheists be surrounded by Christians, and Dr. Mike is there as representing science and surrounded by what was called anti-vaxxers. And RFK's name came up quite a bit because he's a threat to public health. So we know that he's criticized just about every single vaccine program. He has a history of just harmful rhetoric, in my opinion. Yeah, I agree, MT. Really great episode. Watch it. I would highly recommend it. Hi, Deborah. So he was being interviewed or questioned in a hearing specifically about his budget because his budget is out. So this is what he had to say, because the latest controversy for him is about, he talked about measles, and we saw an outbreak in Texas. Shocker. He's asked a very simple question about measles.
If you had a child today, would you vaccinate that child for measles?
For measles, probably for measles. What I would say is my opinions about vaccines are irrelevant. I have directed Jay Bhattacharya.
Sure. No, like I said, I don't want to.
So that everybody can make that decision. But I don't want to seem like I'm being evasive.
Yeah.
But I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me.
Right. No, I got that. And I'm not asking you to give them medical advice, but would you vaccinate your...
You are the Director of Health and Human Services, the Secretary, and you don't want people to take medical advice from you. Okay.
Child for measles. If I answer that question directly, that it will seem like I'm giving advice to other people, and I don't want to be doing that. I want people to make.
But that's kind of your jurisdiction, because CDC does give advice, right? I'm not trying to do it as a gotcha. I was just kind of.
What I think what we're going to try to do is to lay out the pros and cons, the risks and benefits accurately as we understand them, with replicable studies.
Yep. Yeah. If you were given the opportunity to vaccinate your kid for measles, would you do it? And the answer was yes, but you guys in Texas shouldn't. The fuck? Okay. So let's stay on this topic of corruption first, America last. So I'm going to turn this now to the debate around women's rights to their body. Again, a novel concept. What kind of society do you want? I would like a society where women can say, fuck y'all, it's my fucking body, I'll do whatever the fuck I want. What a wild concept. God damn, Steve, you are a radical. Holy shit. I want women to be able to do whatever the fuck they want with their bodies. I know. I am so radical. I don't know how you guys sit here every day for 4 hours and listen to me, because I'm just so radical. Part of the argument when the Dobbs decision came down was, we're going to give it back to the states. States' rights, brother. States' rights. Well, we know that over half of our states don't even allow for citizen ballot measures to be introduced to their balloting, meaning that citizens aren't even allowed to introduce a ballot measure that the state can then vote on. So that whole argument is dismissed. And then the states that do, they want to change the rules. Florida, for example, they said it needed to be 60%, not just a simple majority, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So Missouri lawmakers, so Missouri said, hold my beer. Missouri lawmakers approved referendum to repeal the abortion rights amendment. 6 months after Missouri voters voted to approve an abortion rights amendment. That sentence again. 6 months after voters approved an abortion rights amendment. Okay? States' rights. Gave it back to the states. The states said, yeah, we agree. Women should have rights to their body. Wild concept. Republican state lawmakers yesterday approved a new referendum that would seek the amendment's repeal and instead ban most ABs with the exceptions for rape and incest. The newly proposed constitutional amendment would go back to voters in November 2026 or sooner if Republican Governor Mike Kehoe calls a special election before then. Republican senators used a series of rare procedural moves to cut off discussion by opposing Democrats before passing the proposed budget along party lines 21-11. The measure passed the Republican-led House last month. Immediately after the vote, protesters erupted with chants of stop the ban and were ushered out of the Senate chamber. States' rights. The Senate then blocked further Democratic debate and gave final approval to a separate measure repealing provisions of a voter-approved law guaranteeing paid sick leave for workers and cost of living increases to the minimum wage. So not only women in Missouri and pregnant people, not only Are you not allowed access to your body and rights under your body that the state already said you could have? But we're going to tell you that we're not going to guarantee your paid sick leave, and we are not going to support a cost of living wage increase. Corruption first, America last. What kind of society do you want to live in? Missouri voters, anybody in Missouri who's joining us today, I'd love to hear from you if you've heard about this. Can you imagine? I mean, again, states' rights, brother. States' rights, brother. Goes back to the state. State says, we believe, even though we are a predominantly red state, we believe that women should have rights to their body, reproductive health care. States say, okay, cool. We got it. It's now protected. Republicans are like, yeah, no. We don't want women to have power. No. We don't want women to have rights to their body. We don't give a fuck what the state said. We, 21 likely white, likely graying men in the Senate and in the legislature in the state of Missouri said, no. We don't, women having rights to their body? Fuck that. We don't want that. God forbid. So, yeah, we'll be watching that. Okay, so this goes back to the whole Medicare for all argument, right? About, again, if we had Medicare for all and then we had forbid support women's rights to their body, then these issues are null and void. We wouldn't have to worry about fighting for fucking table scraps as corporations continue to stick it to us. Okay. Everybody keep tapping and sharing, please. Appreciate y'all very much. Don't forget about the gifting goal. And if you want to subscribe, I would subscribe so we can do a sub-only event. Hello, Roberts.
I'm Laura. How are you today, Steve?
Hi, Laura. I'm fine. How's it going?
I'm actually in Missouri. I am an Army brat, Navy wife, ended up here after retirement.
Okay.
I can't remember which person in our state Senate said this, but I believe she was from St. Louis. She was making remarks on the Senate floor and said, "You are telling me that you believe that the people of our state voted for this amendment to protect women's health, that they didn't know what they were doing, but on the same ballot, they knew how to vote for us."
It's a really good point. That's almost along the same lines of the the supposition of election fraud, that it was only at the presidential level that there was fraud, but everybody else that got elected as Republicans during the same election, they were fine, right? It's almost the same argument.
Right. And also locally, we had an amendment on our local ballot to fund youth mental health. We overwhelmingly passed it. And what did our aldermen do? They didn't create the line budget item.
So we're level setting here, right? Dobbs' decision took away women's rights to their body federally. The right said, no, you haven't lost your rights. It's just up to the state. Okay. State of Missouri decides under those guidelines that, yes, we're going to put this out as a ballot measure. State of Missouri decides, yes, we do believe that women should have rights to their body, and we will immortalize it into our Constitution. And Republican legislators said, yeah, no, we don't care about that. We're just going to, we 21 white men likely said, nope, not going to happen.
Yeah. I don't understand Missouri. We continually vote for progressive items on our ballots, but we continuously vote in these ultra conservative asshats. Sorry, there's no other word.
No, asshats work. Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I mean, that's a really good point, right? You know, this is when we talk about things like women's access to reproductive health care. It's like a 75-25% issue federally. The overwhelming majority of people, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Progressive, Conservative, believe that women should have rights to their body. What a novel concept. Same thing with same-sex marriage. Same thing with firearm reform. The overwhelming majority of Americans believe that. But again, because of K Street in D.C., Citizens United, corporate lobbyists, our elected officials do not vote on your behalf.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for what you do each day. You are continuously putting in the good work. We really appreciate you. Take care. Feel free to kick me.
I appreciate you. You got it. See you later. Have a good day. It's a great point you made, right? Here we are. You could vote for us, and yet we don't care what you say. This is why these town halls are so important, friends. This is why they're so important. This is why it's so great to see, movements like 50501, right? Or veterans rallies, or take back the flag rallies, or whatever it might be, right? Those of you who do believe in, again, wild concept, basic human rights, women's access to their body, gender affirming care to prevent suicidal tendencies, access to clean water, access to clean air, access to better education. Again, wild concepts. The majority of people in our country don't believe what Fox News tells you. Don't believe what the Trump administration tells you. Don't believe what KKK Caroline tells you. That is what the data tells us, right? We know this. And to Laura's point, the state of Missouri says we believe, even though we're red, even though we vote Republican, even though we've got a Republican legislature, we as the state believe that women should have rights to their body. And that passes, it gets signed into law by the governor, and then no, we don't want them crazy women having rights. Nope, we just want you barefoot, pregnant, in the kitchen, popping out babies. That's it. And then we're going to vote to lower the age of work so we can put those babies to work, because we lost all the brown-skinned people because we hate them. We can't have them working here. So we need white women cranking out babies so we can support our economy. Makes perfect sense. What kind of society do you want? Corruption first, America last. Okay, so speaking of Fox News, I wanted to share. So I'm not sure if you saw the hearing with Dan Goldman questioning Kristi Noem about the MS-13 tattoo on Mr. Garcia. I know. Imagine, exactly, Francis. Imagine them women folk thinking for themselves. Imagine that. Imagine them women folk speaking out of turn. Imagine that. Imagine them women folk wanting rights to their body. Whoo! How dare they? Where's my dinner? It's in the frying pan upside your head. Shut the fuck up. Okay, so again, what Dan Goldman questioning Kristi Noem, and she just not answering the question. So this is a little bit of the sound from that. And then Fox News, of course, has to jump in to justify her non-answer. This is fucking wild.
I have a bull detector. I'm just asking you, is this doctored or not doctored?
She's talking about this picture. Okay, hold on. I have it someplace. We went through this exercise. You guys remember this. This is the picture that he displayed that day on True Social, right? Okay. This is the photo. This is the close-up of that photo where it says, because the caption is important because you're going to hear Byron Donald talk about it. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, MS. That's what they have said. That they believe this, first of all, is a tattoo. Okay. All right. Good. So let's listen to the rest of the sound.
So the picture was translating the symbols on the knuckles. So it was saying M, this stands for M, this stands for S. So when he's saying it's doctored, he literally knows he's lying.
Yeah, he does.
But he does it anyway.
Well, let me help my colleague who has no credibility. That picture has what's called a caption.
Okay, so that's Byron Donald. Okay, that's Byron Donald accusing Dan Goldman of not having any credibility. Well, Mr. Donald, I've got some bad news for you because I'm a researcher. And I found something very interesting about you, Mr. Representative Byron Donald, who said that Dan Goldman has no credibility. This is reporting from last year, of September the 5th of last year. But Rep. Byron Donald of Florida fails to disclose up to $1.6 million in stock trades Campaign Legal Center files an ethics complaint against him. The office has been urging to investigate Rep. Byron Donald of Florida for failing to disclose over 100 stock trades that he made that totaled up to $1.6 million, which represents numerous violations of the Stop Trading and Congressional Knowledge, or STOCK Act. This egregious violation emphasizes the urgent need for Congress to pass the bipartisan Ending Trade and Holdings in Congressional Stocks and Ethics Acts to further limit violations of this nature. Also, Byron Donald criticized a pregnant mom, recently a brand new mother, for not being able to show up to vote, okay, saying that proxy voting should not be allowed. Byron Donald did it twice so that he could appear on Bill Maher. Okay? So you can miss me with your fucking hypocrisy, Byron. Okay? So back to this. And again, it's ridiculous to listen to this bullshit, but we have to.
The caption is to explain what the tattoo means, so everybody in our country has the same piece of information. President Trump ran on and won on deporting criminal illegal aliens. That's what he's doing. But
just listen to the sound again, okay?
I have a bull detector. I'm just asking you, is this doctored or not doctored?
So the picture was translating the symbols on the knuckles. So it was saying M, this stands for M, this stands for S.
They're attempting to gaslight by telling you that the symbols on his knuckles stand for MS13. Okay?
So when he's saying it's doctored, he literally knows he's lying.
Yeah, he does.
But he does it anyway.
Well, let me help my colleague who has no credibility.
So she's accusing, it was Eric Swalwell, not Dan Goldman. She's accusing Eric Swalwell of lying. Okay.
That picture has what's called a caption. The caption is to explain what the tattoo means, so everybody in our country has the same piece of information.
What?
President Trump ran on.
Okay, anyway. So then, do you guys remember this? This is the interview that Mr. Trump did with ABC News as they were discussing this particular picture. And then you tell me what Donald Trump believes.
He said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
Yeah, that was Photoshop.
That was Photoshop, Terry. You can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but they're there
in
now.
your picture.
Terry.
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested.
I know words. I have the best words. But there's no better word than stupid.
And just as a reminder, okay, you heard that. His words that he had it tattooed on his knuckles. And just as a reminder, this is what Byron Donald said talking to Laura, the obtuse angle.
And one on deporting criminal illegal aliens.
Here we go.
Bull detector. I'm just asking you, is this doctored or not doctored?
So the picture was translating the symbols on the knuckle.
Okay, so there you go. The president said in that interview that he had it tattooed there. It wasn't doctored, it wasn't photoshopped, it was tattooed there. And Laura Ingram's like, well, I mean, it was a cipher, right? It was like a Ludlum novel, like a the Da Vinci Code kind of shit. Got to scramble it. It wasn't the tattoo. It was referencing, because we're going to tell our mouth-breathing, smooth-brained, fucking idiot base, and they're going to believe it.
So it was saying M, this stands for M, this stands for S. So when he's saying it's doctored, he literally knows he's lying.
Yeah, he does.
But he does it anyway.
Well, let me help my colleague who has no credibility. That picture has what's called a caption. The caption is to explain what the tattoo means, so everybody in our country has the same piece of information. President Trump ran on and won on deporting criminal illegal aliens. That's what he's doing. But
so I want to be in a position, like I save these little sound bites, and I want to be in a position to have this conversation with somebody and play those sounds back to back for the red hat, smooth brain wearing, whatever, and play those sounds back to back. And then okay, so help me figure this out. All right. Okay, friend. So do you believe that when the president said that it is tattooed, and I've got tattoos, but I don't have any in Times New Roman. Do you believe that was a tattoo? Well, yeah, the president said it was. Well, he didn't say that. Okay, listen to the sound again, and yeah. Okay, well, Laura, the obtuse angle, says, no, it wasn't the tattoo. It was referencing it, and this means that it's MS-13. This tattoo means that I don't like blueberries. I mean, I do, but you get my point. I don't mean to laugh about it, but it's just like, I do mean to laugh about it because it's fucking stupid. I mean, let's be real. Let's be real. What we just witnessed with those two, Eric Swalwell's credibility when Byron Donald didn't disclose $1.6 million in stock trades and didn't show up to vote and criticize other people for proxy voting when he did it. Right? Fine. That's fine. That's fine, Byron. That's totally fine. I'm not dissing Byrons in the world, just this one. Okay? It's code. Don't believe what the president said. We're just going to tell you that it's a caption. And again, this is the caption that he's referring to. And this is the funniest part to me. He's referring to this caption that they put on there that says, see, it says right here that it's Kilmar Obrego's MS-13 tat. It says it right here. And then Mac is like, see that? Caption right on there. Caption said it. He's an MS-13 member. Got a tattoo. Says it right there. These symbols right here, that's what that means. That's the caption. That's what it says right there. Kilmar Abrego Garza, MS-13-2. Says it right there. That's it. Come on. We're so fucking stupid. We are so dumb as a society. This is some of the reasons that I want to overfund public education, quite frankly. Like, I mean, come on. Like, just, okay. Namaste. All right, so a few more things. Everybody, please keep tapping. So since we're just talking about stock trading, I do think it's necessary that we address this because I think that insider trading should be an absolute violation of your law, and that if you're busted for it, you should be arrested. I also believe that you cannot become a member of Congress if at any point you served as a lobbyist. And I don't believe that you can become a lobbyist after serving in Congress. But those are radical ideas. I know. Whew, seriously. Okay. This is Mike Johnson discussing that issue of insider trading. This is fucking wild.
Okay, but the other side of it, some people say...
Hold on. Let me start from the beginning.
Depending on it. I mean, I'm in favor of that because I don't think we should have any appearance of impropriety. Okay, but the other side of it, some people say, well, look, the salary of Congress has been frozen since 2009. When you adjust 2009, in that year, you're going to have less qualified people who are willing to make the extreme sacrifice to run for Congress. I mean, it's just people just make a reasonable decision as a family on whether or not they can come and move to Washington, have a residence here, a residence at home, and do all the things that are required. So the counter argument is, and I have some sympathy, look, at least let them engage in some stock trading so that they can continue to, take care of their family. But
what?
On balance, my view is we probably should do that because I think it's been abused in the past. And I think, sadly, a few bad actors discolor it for everyone. And look, we have no tolerance for anything even resembling insider trading or any of this kind of advantage that anybody could take. Zero tolerance for it. And we'll stamp it out ourselves. So that's why I'm in favor of the policy, but I understand people that have misgivings about that, so we'll see where it lands.
Oh my God. Congressional salary is $174,000 a year. They get pension. They get the best health care in the world for life. They get legal protection. They get to use government vehicles. And in an attempt to try to justify the fact that members of his caucus, for the most part, are the ones that are the likeliest. MTG. We just saw this perfect example of her enriching herself during the stock crash last couple weeks ago. And his argument is, again, can we play it again? It's worth it because to watch him scramble.
My honest opinion on it, I mean, I'm in favor of that because I don't think we should have any appearance of impropriety here, okay? But the other side of it, some people say, well, look, the salary of Congress has been frozen since 2009. When you adjust for inflation, a member of Congress today is making 31% less than they made in that year. It goes down every year. And over time, if you stay on this trajectory, you're going to have less qualified people who are willing to make the extreme sacrifice.
Less qualified people? I'm sorry. What? Less qualified people? Let me get this straight. You're concerned that if we don't allow people in Congress to break the law by insider trading that people go to jail for, you're concerned that if we outlaw that, we're going to get less qualified people than Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert or Harriet Hageman or Nancy Mace or Tommy Tuberville or Mark Wayne Mullen or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're concerned that we're going to get less qualified people. Okay.
To run for Congress. I mean, it's just people just make a reasonable decision as a family on whether or not they can come and move to Washington, have a residence here, residence at home, and do all the things that are required.
Maybe you could address the housing issue that we have in our country. Wow, wild concept.
So the counter argument is, and I have
Fetterman,
some sympathy.
thank
you. At least let them engage in some stock trading so that they can continue to
let them engage in some stock trading. Okay. Let's think about that for a second. Let's try to be objective. Let's be objective for a second, okay? Let's let them engage in some stock trading. Okay. What stocks? And as a reminder, members of Congress have influence over policy. Members of Congress sit on committees where they are attempting to either move legislation through or pass legislation. Now, let's let them engage in some stock trading. That is fucking wild to me that he would say that. I want to just real quickly, I'm going to see if I can find. This is the list of benefits that members of Congress receive. First of all, it's $174,000 salary. Anybody in the chat make more than $174,000 annually from a salary perspective? You don't have to answer that. But I would have a feeling that it's not the majority of people. I certainly don't. Certainly don't. Nope. Not even close. Okay. Members of Congress receive a variety of benefits beyond their salary, including health insurance, retirement plans, and allowances for official duties. These benefits are intended to help them fulfill their responsibilities and serve their constituents. Health insurance. Members of Congress and their staff are eligible for health insurance through the Federal Employee Health Benefits Program. Elected members of Congress and their staff. Members of Congress get it for life. Members covered by the retirement plans. Members covered by CSRS or the CSRS offset plan can receive retirement benefits based on their service in Congress and other federal employment. Some may also be covered by Social Security and the Thrift Savings Plan. Members Representatives Allowance or MRA. This allowance helps cover official expenses such as staff, travel, mail, and office equipment. Travel benefits. Members can receive travel allowances for official businesses, including travel, to their districts. The death gratuity. A death gratuity payment is provided to heirs of members who are unalive while serving. Other benefits. These may include dental, vision coverage, flexible spending accounts, vision, audiology, and access to the Congressional Federal Credit Union. And the Senate, guess what? The Senate has a student loan repayment program for all members and staffers. Mike Johnson, one more time, in an attempt to justify this. Crazy.
I mean, I'm in favor of that because I don't think we should have any appearance of impropriety here, okay? But the other side of it, some people said, well, look, the salary of Congress has been frozen since 2009. When you adjust for inflation, a member of Congress today is making 31% less than they made in that year. It goes down every year. And over time, if you stay on this trajectory, you're going to have less qualified people who are willing to make the extreme sacrifice to run for Congress. I mean, it's just people just make a reasonable decision as a family on whether or not they can come and move to Washington, have a residence here, residence at home, and do all the things that are required. So the counter argument is, and I have some sympathy, look, at least let them engage in some stock trading so that they can continue to take care of their family. But on balance, my view is we probably should do that because I think it's been abused in the past, and I think sadly a few bad actors discolor it for everyone. And look, we have no tolerance for anything even resembling insider trading or any of this kind of advantage that anybody could take. Zero tolerance for it. We'll stamp it out ourselves.
Okay. Good luck with that.
That's why I'm in favor of the policy.
Yeah, good luck with that. Okay, so I've got a little bit more sound for Mike Johnson since we're talking about Mike now. Everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. Appreciate y'all very, very much. Where is this one? All right, so obviously, I know, so out of touch. This is why, of all the branches of government, even lower than Supreme Court, congressional approval is like 22%, 23%, and it's because of that kind of bullshit. All right? I'd love to see what his insider trading, his portfolio looks like. So Mike Johnson, Mike is not a dumb guy. He's a smart individual, right? We know that he and his son monitor each other's corn, and according to Mike Lee, even that's going to be too much because we're going to ban corn. No more corn, everybody. That's it. No more. I'm going to say, as my progressive platform, I'm going to say more corn, more toys, more swings, more whips, more chains, more leather. Let's go. Yes, let's do it. So this is in response to trying to navigate through the gift of the Qatari jet. Okay, this is what Mike Johnson again had to say about that. Mike is in a tough spot these days. So this is what he had to say about this. Is wild. Buckle up.
Speaker, you were very critical of President Biden and his family's foreign business dealings. You supported an impeachment inquiry as a result of it. Are you equally concerned about President Trump's family?
Again, remember how oftentimes he and his Republican leadership were wanted to go after Joe Biden for impeachment, for the Biden crime family, corruption, blah, 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 blah. Listen to this fucking answer.
These business dealings, especially given the fact that he is in a region now where his family has billions of dollars of investments in Doha and Saudi Arabia, and the fact that he has a crypto business now where he's auctioned off access to the White House for the highest bidder in his meme coin.
Look, there are authorities that the police executive branch ethics rules. I'm not an expert in that. My expertise is here in the House. Okay, I'll say that the reason many people refer to the Bidens as the Biden crime family is because they were doing all this stuff behind curtains, but in the back rooms. They were trying to conceal it, and they repeatedly lied about it, and they set up shell companies, and the family was all engaged in getting all on the dole. Whatever the President Trump is doing is out in the open. And
So the corruption that you're seeing from the Trump crime family is fine because it's right out in the open. He's taking a $400 million gift from the Qatari government right out in the open. He's accepting bribes from foreign countries right out in the open. He's selling access to the Oval Office through crypto right out in the open. He's guaranteeing sit-downs if you invest in like the gold card right out in the open. Nothing to see here.
I'm not trying to conceal anything.
But Mr. Speaker, the investment in the meme coin, those folks are not transparent. We do not know who those people are.
Exactly. I don't know anything about the meme coin thing. I don't know. I can just tell you that President Trump has had nothing to hide. He's very upfront about it. Okay. And there are people who watch all the ethics of that, but I've got to be concerned with running the House of Representatives.
Is it congressional oversight, though? That's the congressional responsibility.
Congress has oversight responsibility, but I think so far as I know, the ethics are all being followed. So, yes, sir.
As far as you know, because you are too afraid to do an investigation. Congressional oversight over the, sorry, I don't want to battle you because I don't like to battle. It stresses me out. Congressional oversight, ethics violations, and investigating crimes is what you're supposed to do. You had no evidence. King Aragon, I break Grinder daily. I appreciate the compliment. I know I'm a handsome devil. I would agree. I don't swing that way, but I don't judge. But thank you. Anyway, the irony that is Mike Johnson, the guy who was arguing and attempting to have articles of impeachment introduced by the Biden administration every single time one was brought up by MTG and others. There was no, I'm sorry, King, didn't understand that question. Anyway, it never got anywhere. And here we are. Why was there no investigations? Why were there no charges filed? Why were there no indictments? Why did none of that happen? I'd like to know that. But here we are. The corruption is totally fine as long as it's out in the open for everyone to see. What's up, Toodle? Some advice, my guy. If you're going to be corrupt, just do it out in the open. Okay?
Dobre utro.
Don't hide anything.
Welcome to another day in the USSRA.
Exactly. Exactly. Isn't it? I mean, just to listen to that, just to listen to the whole insider trading piece saying, woe is us as members of Congress. We have the best healthcare in the world, student loan repayment, access to this, access to that, $174 million salary, blah, 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 blah. And then, listen, President Trump's corruption is right out in the open, so nothing to see here. That is crazy. And again, the messaging to the right and the mouth-breathing smooth brainers. Well, Mike Johnson told me his corruption's right out in the open. So what's the big deal? He ain't hiding his corruption. It's right in front of our face.
Isn't corruption right in your face? Isn't that just called authoritarianism?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Corruption. It's just, it is what it is. If not authoritarian, why authoritarian shaped? Is why I ask. I love that MAGA voice. It reminds me of Bob from the Unnecessary Conversation podcast.
Oh, dude, I'm working on a question to ask them because I need to hear Bob answer that question.
Oh,
yep.
I don't know. He tends to run away, so hopefully you'll get it in. But his mom is getting on the fence. I think
she is, like the habeas corpus question. That was an interesting one. Recently they were asked a question. But what we're talking about is the Necessary Conversation podcast. I've referenced this before. You guys should look it up. It's great. It's mom and dad and their two kids. Their kids are obviously progressive liberals and whatever that. And mom and dad are stuck in the cult. And they both admitted that they only get their news from Newsmax. And then the question was asked, Mom, do you believe that everyone is entitled to habeas corpus? And she thought about it. She's like, yeah, I do. And then he's like, well, that means you disagree with President Trump. And she's like, yeah, I guess I do. I didn't see if Dad got asked that same question because he'll say, nope, not if you're an illegal. Nope, not if you're an illegal. You don't get it.
And then say, it's all Big Mike. Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
But
exactly.
I came up, I love that voice, but I came up because I was you're talking about improprietary and Mike Johnson. You're probably aware, but maybe the audience isn't. He lives in a lobbyist's basement on K Street right now. A $3.7 million townhouse is where Mike Johnson lives for free.
Really?
Yeah, it's a
interesting.
And also, it gets crazier. The lobbyist that owns it, and this is Frederick Douglass's, the legendary abolitionist from, the 1800s house that we're talking about. But it's owned by a evangelical pastor by the name of Stephen Berger, who was running an influence campaign to try to end the separation of church and state. That's his lobbying group.
Wow.
And yeah, like I said, Johnson stays at his home for free. And there's a lot of weird, SMEC stuff maybe surrounding this guy, kind of like Jerry Falwell Jr. And, so I believe it's probably a SMEC dungeon.
Sorry.
Sorry. It's probably a SMEC dungeon that Johnson lives in.
Who the fuck knows? It literally could be anything. My gosh.
It's always crazy stuff that the people that shout the loudest against something is, every accusation is a confession between the
pretty much
and not being insider trading is okay.
How do you? That's the part, and that's to me. We joke about it, but it's damaging because you literally have someone who the right likes to tout as their evangelical champion, Mike Johnson, who will literally stand there and tell them that we got to be looking out for our members of Congress that are making $174,000 a year and have the best healthcare in the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We should let them insider trade because of the sacrifices that they have made. That's unbelievable.
It's great.
Tootle, it's always good to talk to you, my brother. It's always good to talk to you.
Send me out with the with our good old Dr. Strangelove.
You got it.
Oh, I guess it didn't play. But anyway, I'll just go wee
later, buddy. Well, I'm excited. I just got a text from our friend, the knitting cult lady, Daniela, who's been on our show with us before many, many times. It's good to see you again. How are you?
Good to see you. It was fun watching you text me.
Oh, yeah, because you knew what I was doing. Exactly right. Yeah, that's right. How are you today?
I'm good. Welcome to week 17 of the Trump administration.
Right. It's corruption. It's corruption first, America last, Daniela.
Yeah. And I wanted to pop in and say, so in cults, I'm a cult scholar. My third rule of cults is even if he did it, doesn't mean he's guilty. And this is called the deification of idiosyncrasy, which is our human desire to make excuses for the inexcusable behavior of our cult leaders, charismatic leaders. And I know people don't find Donald Trump charismatic if they're not under his spell, but he is, right? If you are under that. Sure. And so this is kind of, to me, just very predictable, like the ridiculous response from Mike Johnson. But also it makes perfect sense because they are going to justify no matter what, right? Like when he said, I can pew someone on Fifth Avenue and they would still vote for me, like cult of personality set.
So I agree. Obviously, we've had this conversation many times. And again, if you guys do not follow the knitting cult lady, please do so. It looks like you have a different account now of your 9 million. So I need to follow you there because you're naughty in TikTok spaces sometimes, as we know, Daniela. It's one thing to have the messaging from the cult leader, in this case, Donald Trump, but it's now permeated. So it's anybody anybody within leadership positions or talking heads or public voices that are sharing the same sentiment. It seems like the followers are now following them as well, not just the leader. He sure is, because I played, I'm not sure how long you've been listening, but I played the sound from the famous ABC interview where he talked about the tattoo on the knuckles, and he's convinced that it's a real tattoo. And then Laura Ingraham and Byron Donald are obviously saying, well, no, all they did was put the caption in there to describe it as what they believe is to be MS-13. So there's that break, right? It's not just the cult leader, it's other people in the organization, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Am I missing something there?
No, I think people sometimes forget that a cult is a hierarchical organization, and it's not just one guy at the top running everything. So first of all, I just had someone say, another cult expert said, MAGA can't be a cult because Trump bends to the will of his followers. And no, that's cults, right? They're always pushing, blurring the edges, right? Throwing things out and seeing if people will go along with it. I think that's what he's doing with his Trump 2028 merch. Is just if we say it enough, people will just go along with it. And there's this thing called social proof that cult leaders really rely on, which is, first of all, we think as humans that we are rational, but we're actually not. And we make most of our decisions based on recency bias and social proof, which is what worked for us most recently and what everyone around us is doing. Growing up in the Children of God, which is the religious schmex cult, at one point, the cult leader had this idea that everyone was going to be married to Jesus and have relations with Jesus, right? And when they put out this policy to their followers, they put out very specific instructions that nobody was to read it alone. You had to read it aloud with at least one other adult cult member. And so this is because of social proof, because when you believe you're surrounded by other reasonable, rational people, and they're not speaking out, then you're not going to either. And so this is kind of what happens with the cult leader, right? He throws out ridiculous things, and then sometimes there's pushback and he has to take it back. But more often than not, the cult leadership, right, going all the way down, will justify it and jump through hoops to justify what their person at the top has said. And very, very often the cult leader is just kind of a bloviating tool. And it's the people underneath that are trying to keep them up. Sorry. I'm starting to use this analogy of Tigger and the 100-acre wood, right?
Oh, sure.
He's the cult leader, right? Makes up a name for himself, then tells you he's the only one. And he is kind of a fool, jumping around, wrecking things. And Rabbit, right, is the cult uncle who's running behind him, trying to clean up. And this is majors in the military, just the commander's throwing out ridiculous things. And then that kind of activates the cult hierarchy to put that into policy and make people do that and make people believe that and make that the official thing. So, there's this whole deal, leadership structure in a cult that is always working to keep that person propped up.
So you've told me before that the threat to the cult is the opposition within the ranks of the cult. People start to questioning it, which I think makes sense. As you said, you had to have somebody in the room with you, or people had to have somebody in the room so that you could address any potential criticism, firsthand. So I think about it excommunicating, right? But in politics, it's a little bit different because we've seen some Republican officials be in opposition to this, voting against these draconian budgets and voting against or questioning the ethics regarding the Qatari jet and things like that. So excommunicating from the cult in politics is probably a bit different, or is it?
I mean, yeah, it's it's interesting because totalitarian nations are a type of cult, right? Those are cults. And what has happened there is basically the cult has taken over the government. And I feel like here, like the cult is now in power, and it goes much deeper, I think, throughout all of our politics than any of us realized before this last election. But it's not, everybody is not in the cult, right? Like totalitarian nation has not been affected yet. So there are still people who are Republicans who are not in the cult of MAGA. And there are some people who maybe were in it, because the other thing about the cult is like the promise of the cult is always a lie, right? He's not going to make America better. And he hasn't lowered the price of eggs, So like as soon as he got back in power, right? He had 4 whole years to tell him like, I'm going to fix it when I get back in, right? And then as soon as he got in power, like the brainwashing can start to crack because people can start to see real things, like now a bunch of seniors who voted for him are losing medical care, right? Like, is that going to wake them up? And you know what? A lot of times we observe that cracks in the brainwashing happen around medical emergencies, either for yourself or your child, because cults always hate medical care. And I think it's because people see in that moment that like, oh, there's no end to the amount of sacrifice that the cult will ask from me, right? Up to and including my life. And that can be the end moment for some people, but again, not for everybody, right? But yeah, I do think it's like, he doesn't, I don't know. I heard someone say like, he had to get it in the first 90 days, like his actual like cult dictatorship hold on America. And he didn't, because they're bad at this. Like that's our saving grace. There's a couple saving graces here. One is our incredibly huge size of our country. And the other one is all the checks and balances, and just that they're bad at this. Like,
they're very bad at this. I talked about this earlier. I'm not sure how long you listened.
Evil and dumb is better than evil and smart.
Good point. I talked about this earlier about the trade war, the second time that he's lost again to China because they're just better at it and they're smarter than he is. The 145% tariff reduced down to 30%, which means American consumers will still pay more and they will call that a win. I mean, that is, to me, I think that's an example of the brainwashing. And I use this background, again, I'm not sure if you saw it, but when they'll go to the pump, they'll pay $3.24 a gallon. They'll look at their receipt and it will be $1.98. Where is it? I've got it someplace. They'll look at the receipt. It'll say $3.24. Trump has told them it's $1.98 a gallon. They'll believe that it's $1.98 a gallon. I mean, I don't mean to be so, maybe that's not extreme to think that, but they will think that. They will think that a 30% increase in pricing is a win based on that indoctrination, right?
Yes. There's a really interesting study where they draw 3 lines on a page that are obviously different sizes, and one of them is obviously bigger than the other ones. And they have people identify it, and they identify it right every time. And then they have somebody misidentify it. And then like people go on to follow like exactly what you were saying, right? Looking at something that is clearly untrue and being like, nope, this is true. And, the one big idea I say that I wrote my book to demonstrate to people was like, humans will do almost anything to fit into their voluntary groups, and justifying craziness, right? Yeah. Absolute craziness.
Yeah. Craziness
is perfectly rational to them once you're like in a cult. I mean, the cult I was born into justified pedophilia for God.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
I know you keep a keen eye to not only the work that you do, but also on the political side as well. And I'm wondering if you've been sort of your reaction to what you've seen budgetarily regarding cuts to veterans benefits, to the VA, to women's health care. Has there been anything that's kind of, and I shared that article with you about the military changing the standards for women, now making the physical test the same as it is for men. You're like, whatever.
No, let me tell you about how great that is, right? So like, first of all, like men made up, right? They sort of like made up the idea that you have to be so physically fit to go to war. Like that was never a thing in history, right? They made up that idea and then they made up a measurement for it. And then they made up the fact that women had to have a different, lesser measurement, mostly because women were beating men and men can't handle that, right? Same reason we have women's sports. And so, but then they use that to say we're not good enough. Right. So like in my military career, I ran a 5-minute mile. OK, a 5:15. Right. So in my military career, I physically performed better than about 96% of the men that I served with. But they could all be like, well, but no, on the female scale, like you're lesser than anyways. Right. And so the women, I was one of the first women on a deliberate ground combat team. Right. When it was still illegal for women to be in combat. And like we have been saying for years, bring it, right? They'll be like, if you can't pass the same standards, bring it. That's all we've been saying. When I was in officer school, they let us take the Ranger PT test and 5 of us passed and with flying colors. And then they were just like, yeah, sorry. You know? So I personally find it hilarious that like again, like Donald Trump and Pete Hegsbreth don't understand our military. Right? Like the women going into combat arms can outperform the men, right? Like it's just silly. So it's like, thank you. And I really just call to all active duty women out there, like, please make videos of you embarrassing the men. Please do it. So yeah, I mean, I'll say to the audience, right? Like the military is holding, right? The military is a cult. I wrote that book, but it answers to the Constitution. And it is built to be difficult on purpose, right? Like we keep weapons on one side of the base and ammunition on the other side of the base, right? To make it difficult for a response. Right? These things are built in on purpose. And one of the things I tell people is like, Donald Trump doesn't understand our military, right? We don't have a top-down military like Russia. We actually have our doctrine is called mission command, which is you push the decisions down to the lowest level. That's how you're agile. You know, and as is said of the American military, the Germans once said, the reason the Americans are impossible to beat is because they don't even follow their own doctrines, right? Just like we have empowered individual soldiers that are professionals that are taught to work together in modern day warfare, right? So, but, you know, so what I tell people is like, Trump doesn't understand our military because he's been studying tyrants his whole life, but like the leaders of our military understand him.
Studying tyrants.
Studying tyrants their whole career, right? So I really do think the military is working hard to like ensure that they cannot be used as a weapon by a dictator.
I was just going to ask you about that, about the expectation. Is it the UCJA, or meaning that you don't have to obey an unlawful order?
Yeah.
UCMJ, yeah. So I'm just wondering about that, if you were expecting to see some of that.
This is true for our military since the end of World War II. This is when we adopted mission command doctrine, which is from the Germans, ironically, Auftragstaktik. Actually kind of how the Germans were almost winning World War II is because they had this not, I was just following orders model, right? So we don't, like, you don't have that defense. And every service member, especially of this generation, like understands from day one that like not only do you not have to follow an illegal or immoral order, you are responsible to not follow, and you can go to jail if you follow, right? Like, my husband is a Chinook pilot, and the Chinook helicopters are the ones where a pilot is flying and a different soldier is on the guns. And he always said, like, he was so glad that that was true, because he didn't have to make those hard decisions and potentially risk going to jail for doing something illegal or immoral, according to the laws of war, right? So soldiers, right? This is, and then again, this is why the top down or the bottom up nature of our military matters, because it's not going to be, right, like generals at the top. Right? It's very concerning that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said that he would unalive people for Donald Trump. But the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is not unaliving people, right? Like, the military is run by 19-year-old specialists and 25-year-old captains. And at the end of the day, it's going to be like 3 privates and a warrant officer who won't like drive him places or fly his helicopter, right? Like the people who wouldn't let him go to the Capitol on January 6th, you know, like, so that's also the saving grace, is like the people that do the things are the low level everyday Americans. And he doesn't understand that.
We've been talking a lot about posse comitatus, Daniela, and about, seizing land at the border, in an attempt to kind of create it as a military installation. Therefore, if anybody crosses the border illegally and they step foot on a military installation, it's almost like they're justifying unaliving somebody because it's stepping foot unlawfully onto a military installation, which kind of goes back a little bit to what we were just saying about whether or not somebody would be ordered to take someone's life based on that false pretense that it's, yes, this invasion, right? It's a weird, I feel bad for members of the military in those situations, right?
I do also, right? Because it's that's the only loophole he could find, right? Like the only way he could kind of find to legitimately use the military right now is to put them on the border, because policing borders is legitimate, right? Just like prisoner transportation is legitimate. Right. And still the military wouldn't fly his prisoners, right? Right. Ultimately. But so first of all, it's just funny because spy school, intelligence school is on the border of Mexico, and people cross into and out of an active duty military base all the time without knowing, and it's not policed very well, right? So like this has already been happening and they already can't handle it. So like, one of the things I'm telling people is like, so posse comitatus, it's illegal to use American soldiers against Americans, right? Unless very specific circumstances. And the courts have been like, absolutely not, right? Like every court has denied there's no invasion. This is not happening. I definitely feel bad for soldiers being put in this situation. And what's happening, I'm also in DC, right? So what's happening in DC is also happening in the military, which is like the brain drain, right? Which is what always happens when tyrants take over. And the good people are leaving. But I just want to give people like some kind of comfort, right? Like national operations are not possible if the American military fires one shot against Americans, like the people win that fight, right? Like there's more combat experience outside the military than inside the military right now. And bringing you back to veterans benefits, right? While they technically haven't touched it yet, we're starting to hear reports of people just getting their disability slashed. You just get a letter that says you dropped from 100% to 40%. Which is a difference of getting a paycheck of 50 grand a year to live on versus $300 a month or something. And so you got 2 million of us out there whose exact specialty is how you beat the American military in insurgent operations, right? That's what happened to us. And that's just the Iraq-Afghanistan conflict, right? Not to mention your Vietnam vets, not to mention all of that, right? Things like Project 2025, right, relies on disarming Americans. That's not possible. It's not logistically possible to come for 500 million weapons. Like, it takes us 5 hours to turn in 30 weapons after we fire them in the military, right? Like, even if we were already in a line to give our weapons, like, it's not logistically possible. So at the end of the day, I think, like, he's absolutely trying to be a dictator, right? I think we all see this now. I think he wants his name to be said with the gravitas of the world's greatest dictators. And I hope his name will only ever be said with derision, because he is fumbling it badly. But really, I think our size is going to affect things. And at some point, there will be a tipping point, right? And 340 million people cannot be ruled by force, right? And so
no,
at some point, I feel like it's going to have to be Republicans, right? Like, but at any point, Congress decides they can impeach and remove the president, right? So, like, I have a fantasy that 1 million pissed off veterans will just march into the White House and yank him out and throw him on Pennsylvania Avenue and say, "Do again, America." Like, a traitor can't be president. And that includes Shady Vance also. And, like, that's what I think about.
A lot of people do.
Last but not least, one of the reasons that it's not going to work in America is because we have the internet, and is because there are thousands of jackasses like you and me out here talking about this stuff, right? And so, like, not conceding in advance, right? People ask me if I'm scared, and I'm about to put out a very critical book, and I'm like, yeah, I'm scared, but if I don't do it, then he's already taken my freedom of speech, right? So, like, we have to keep having these conversations.
So, I have 2 more questions. If you can stick for another minute or so, are you cool with hanging, or do you got to run?
No.
Okay. So somebody asked this question, and everybody, this is Daniela. If you don't know Daniela, it's been an honor to get to know her. She's been on lives with us a couple times. She's talked about her background growing up in a cult and then the U.S. Army, and she's an author, and she's published, and she's just smart as hell. And I get so much from every time I talk to you. Anyway, somebody asked a question about habeas corpus, and we've seen this argument now about the attempting to justify, because words matter, as you and I have discussed. The argument from the Trump administration, from my perspective, is to try to create this perception that there is an invasion. Therefore, anybody here illegally would then not be protected under the law, thus habeas corpus. Do you see it that way, and where do you see this going if that is the case?
No, I mean, habeas corpus is in the Constitution, and it's very clear that it applies to everyone, and many presidents have tried, right, including most recently George Bush, with sending people to Guantanamo. And the Supreme Court said, no, like, they sued, they won, right? Like, it applies to everyone. But also, again, like, if habeas corpus is suspended, then, like, civilians can also go take people prisoner and not have to produce them, right? Exactly. Like, we can go eat the billionaires. So I think that's the other thing, is, like, they're not good at this, like.
No, they're not, thankfully.
If you weaponize something, sometimes you weaponize it both ways, and it,
be careful what you wish for.
It's a very obvious right to people. It's a right that America was built on. So I think, like, even when they say stuff like that, it's kind of like going to be cracks in brainwashing for some people. I love cracking the brainwashing, right? Because Signalgate, like, I guarantee you that all 13 million veterans, plus however many people have ever worked for the federal government, everybody knows. They know in their heart of hearts, like, you do that kind of stuff, like, you wake up in Guantanamo. That's how you find out, like, and so eventually, like, they keep pushing it, like they keep being bad to veterans. Like they're trying to touch all the third rails, do all the things you're not supposed to do, and like see what works. And they're going to do a lot of damage, but I hope.
Yeah, I mean, and you've given, by the way, you've given the chat a lot of hope, so I appreciate that. And I know what you're talking about, the fantasy of dragging him out, from the front steps over the marble staircase. I get that, but a lot of people are, I think, cautious and or concerned that martial law would be declared and there'd be no election next year. And based on, what you just discussed about first of all, the likelihood and then the resistance being something that potentially could keep that from happening. Your thoughts on that, and do you think we'll have an election next year?
Yes, I do think we'll have an election. I think my thoughts on that, like on anything to do with martial law, is literally you and what army? A line I tell my followers is no country on earth has a big enough army to invade America, including America, right? The Department of Defense, that's soldiers and support, is 2 million people. Like, you cannot govern 340 million people over 4 million square miles of territory with borders that cannot be closed, unlimited ports of ingress and egress, and 2 easily accessible oceans, right? Like, you cannot rule us by force. So the same thing he's saying to the Supreme Court, right? Which Andrew Jackson, that racist, gross, awfulest president in history who Trump admired until now, he's of course worse. But like Jackson,
birds of a feather,
right? The Supreme Court has made their ruling. Now let them enforce it. And I feel like as Americans, that's how we respond, right? Like, go ahead and try to stop our elections. How, right? They're run by states. They're not federal. You can't federalize that fast enough, right? In the end, it's going to be, so in cults, this is called routinization, right? The charismatic leader builds their thing and then they can't run it by themselves, right? So they have to put people in place, and they either put effective bureaucrats or fellow narcissists, right? Which is what Trump did. But in the cult of America and in like the cult of Mormonism, they put effective bureaucrats in place, right? And then those bureaucrats start bureaucrating. They start writing things down, making processes, right? Making laws, doing all this stuff and building bureaucracy. And bureaucracy is the opposite of charismatic leadership, right? So it's harder to grab. And so America has 250 years of routinization, right? Like, we don't have a national police force. We are a loose federation of states because they cannot control us. And you would need 100 million soldiers to invade America, and you probably would still lose on our territory, right? So, and again, to give you all some hope, right? Mr. Knitting Cult Lady said he could hold mountains. I was saying I could hold mountains in Appalachia with 500 locals against the government forever. Mr. Knitting Cult Lady, special operations helicopter pilot, was like, I could do it with 7. Give me 7 people. 7 people, right now, get to know your neighbors, figure out what skills you have, what special skills you have, right? Pay attention to people who grew up under religious extremism or who are veterans, because we know how to do a lot of things. And if you're a person who has experienced authoritarianism before in a relationship, in a family, in a cult, like, you're really triggered right now. So acknowledge that, but also you have the skills to survive this. And like, as Americans, we have the skills to survive this. We've forgotten, right? Especially white America has forgotten how to come together and resist, but like, we're gonna figure it out. And also, like, he's giving cult leader an endgame, right? Like, wildly. And I have this analogy of, in cults, they always say it's the frogs in the boiling pot of water, right? But you're supposed to boil it slowly.
Yeah.
Because when you turn it to frickin' broil, right, the frogs are going to jump out of the pot. And when you have 340 million frogs jumping around your kitchen, it doesn't matter how many billions of dollars you have. Like, you're not getting anything done, right? So, like, being jackass Americans that don't follow rules is going to help us in the end, right? I studied empire in Germany in college. I know, my life is too perfect. And the Germans make this joke about themselves that they never had a modern, like, peasant rebellion because the peasants couldn't afford the train fare, right? And Germans would never. Germans are some of the most rule-loving people on the planet, right? Americans, like, we will rip up your train lines. No, seriously, that's how you beat them. You rip up the train lines, you know? And, like, we only follow rules that are really enforced, right? And so, like, our general non-cooperativeness as a nation, like, that's the personality of our nation, right? We're jerks. That's gonna help us right now, right? Like, because they can't, right? Like, how are they going? The logistics of trying to control 340 million people who have been at least given the idea of freedom, right? Our nation has never been really free, right?
Free,
for a lot of
right.
people, but we at least have this idea, right? And it's like just the logistics.
How ironic what you just spoke about, because for years we've heard of, you know, liberals and Democrats coming for your firearms, and people understanding, or in their mind, they understand what they believe to be the roots of the Second Amendment, which was to stand up against a tyrannical government. And as you're describing, here we are in a tyrannical government, right? Funny how things work out that way.
Well, you know, as they say, you go far enough left, you get your guns back, right? I think, so two things. First of all, like, they insist on believing that Democrats are not armed, so great, right?
Yeah,
great.
Good point.
An enemy underestimating you is awesome. And by the way, if you have blue hair, they can't hear you. So, like, yeah.
It's true.
People on my channel are always like, don't tell them. And I'm like, they're not in here listening to me. Like, they can't see me as a human, right? But, where was I going with that? Sorry, I got too excited.
Tyranny, the lie of the Second Amendment, you know, stand up.
Yeah. So like, but what was I saying about they're coming for the weapons? I'm just going to go back to, like, it's not possible, right? Like, even if I think there was a creator who did the math, and I don't math because homeschooled, so I can't check it. But they said, like, if Americans were all standing in line right now, ready to give our weapons, it would take 66 years to collect our weapons. I also grew up in Brazil, where they tried to make weapons illegal, and then they very quickly took that back because the logistics of collecting weapons from law-abiding citizens it's too much, right? So, like, especially for white people who are not heavily at risk right now, like, embodying a little bit of, like, you in what army, right? Oh, that's what I was going to say about preppers, right? So I've said this too for years about the Second Amendment. Like, preppers, like, no, technology made the Second Amendment ineffective, right? You cannot stockpile enough weapons to go against one chick in the U.S. Air Force, right? The chair force, as we call them, right? But they
the drone pilot.
Take all of us. Someone asked me today, are they going to nuke us? I was like, they can't nuke all of us. You know, like, it's the immense size of America. Like, that's the safety. And then let me tell you about insurgent operations. This is what I did in the Army. I was the intelligence officer, right? You have to look, if you are going to invade America.
Can you filibuster for a minute? Because I got to pee. So I'm going to give you the keys to the car. Okay.
Absolutely. Right. If you're going to invade America, so if you're going to try to force Americans, you have to assume that every American is armed, that every house is armed. And we couldn't even win with that in Afghanistan with 85 million people and assuming that every house had one AK, right? Like, No country, no modern country has ever won a counterinsurgency. Right? Wolverines, exactly. One of the few movies I have seen. So like, it's not, but also I tell my audience this a lot. Like, people are so focused on Germany or Gilead that they're like, we're missing dictatorship era Latin America. And I grew up in Latin America, in Brazil, recovering from a dictatorship. And like, you still can't send packages to Brazil through their postal service, right? My post office just got closed. My post office is the government institution I've chosen to care about, and I'm watching them just like break it. Right? Because it breaks freedom. People vote by mail. If mail goes straight to for profit, like every small town in America will immediately get cut off because there's not enough profit in small town mail. That's why the post office is in the Constitution. So.
Rural voters vote red primarily, so that's interesting. That cut the nose and spite the face, right? As they say.
Yes, my post office in the U.S. just got closed. I know. I was keeping it open with my books single-handedly, I think, and then I had to outsource. And now they're closed.
So, do you have? I mean, again, this is so lucky. I'm so glad you texted me. Do you have any advice for people? Because I know, I'm sure in the circles that you're in, and when I do this every day, I mean, people are genuinely scared, and I get it. I know communities are under threat, especially marginalized communities, women, members of the BIPOC community, members of the LGBTQI community. People are scared. People are looking at their wallets and their bank accounts, and people are freaked out. But you tend to give people hope because you're very direct in what you've seen. Your experience tells you of the things that we can all look out for, and how the size of our nation and those kinds of things are inspiring. So what would your advice to people be, Daniela? Especially, we get a lot of veterans in our chat and a lot of active duty as well. So there's two groups of people. Yeah. Just in general, your advice, and then go for it.
My first advice is just going to be to give everyone like a simple like disaster planning strategy, right? So this is my job in the military, right? Is you come to me with your plan and I say, this is how it's going to most likely go wrong. And this is the most dangerous thing that could happen to you, right? And so I'm not going to tell you don't be scared, right? Because you're going to be scared, right? We're all scared right now. But like, if you go to worst case, you only go there to think about what would I do, okay? So like, people are like, what if he puts autistic people in labor camps? I'm like, first of all, I survived a labor camp. I grew up in one. Second of all, can you imagine the shenanigans late diagnosed autistic women would get to in labor camps with all the things that we know? Like, not to mention RFK is not a neurotypical person. So he's literally Frankenstein, like he would be building his own monster, right? But like, I tell my followers, I'm like, I'm your fairy threat mother, right? Whatever you're scared of, it has happened. What would you do, right? If they're coming for your trans sibling who you love with all your heart, I know where I'm hiding him. I know how I'm putting my body in front of him, right? But then I don't stay there. I go back to the most likely is we're going to have a super shitty 4 years of the season of grift and golf, and he's going to irreparably damage America, and not everyone is going to survive it, right? Because not everyone survives cults and revolutions and authoritarian control. But like, we will make it through, right? Like, America is going to look different, but we will survive, right? Like the whole country is not going to be snuffed out. And so that's my first thing, right? Is like, if you're doing disaster planning, you go to most dangerous just to only think about what would you do? And then, but you don't stay there very long, because the reality is it's not going to be what you think. I remember the moment when I realized that the intelligence brief didn't really matter how accurate it was, because it's mostly just about getting you to think, what would you do? And then once you've gone through that, you're safer, but also, like, you can't prep for societal level disasters, right? Prepare for Tuesday, not doomsday, right? If all of the shelves suddenly have no food, like we're all getting through that together. And your individual prepping is not going to help you, because if you're not starving when other people are, they know that and they're going to come for you, you know? So like, just don't stay too long in zombie apocalypse mode, right? Like think about it and then come back out. So that's like my first tip. And then my second tip for like, when you're in a cult that you can't leave for like approximately 4 years. And by the way, I spent from 11 to 15 making my escape plan. So 4 years. You survive and you resist, right? And part of surviving is you have to find joy and you have to find rest and you have to find community, right? But like Jewish children doing Shakespeare plays for each other in the camps, right? And marginalized communities in our country are great at this, right? Because this is their reality all of the time. You have to find joy and rest and distance from like what's happening, right? So no matter how scared we are, like go touch grass, right? Go participate in the real world where day-to-day things have not changed that much yet, right? And then so joy, and then resist, right? And color is a great form of resistance, whether that is being a person of color in America or wearing lots of color. Tyrants hate red when they cannot control it. And like joy itself is resistance, right? Color itself is resistance. And like I watch my crazy outfits give people joy, and like in joy in times of tyranny is resistance, right? So like when we were deployed to Afghanistan, one of the pieces of advice I got as a woman to survive a year in drag overseas, where you're 5% of the population, is wear really bright colored underwear, because that's like the only color you're going to see all year. And it was kind of like, and we also had our toes perfectly polished, right? Because that's not allowed, but like no one's going to see that. So it was like our way of like pushing back the only way we could and being like, we are women, we are gonna get through this, right? So wear wacky outfits, whatever that means to you. I always say that my style right now just screams I didn't vote for Donald Trump, you know, and like, you know,
so are my fingernails.
Find the other people, like find the veterans in your community. We're all scared that we're going to get a letter one day telling us we just don't have income anymore. I live on that too. But also like, I have a plan on how to hold my square if I need to, right? And I even tell my friends that don't live here, I'm like, hey, in your disaster planning, it gets really bad, you just make your way over here, you know? I have 27 years of military experience in my little townhouse, you know, and we're right on DC, and I'm trying to convince Mr. Knitting Cult Lady not to stand in front of the parade. But, you know, I think there are a lot of veterans here in DC ready to snap. So if things get, you know, people care about their issues, right? So I think the silliest thing they could do would be to come for our benefits after they made us fight a dirty war, and then they betrayed all of our allies on the way out, and now they want to come for our money. Like,
yeah, I think that's I'm glad you said that. We speak to a lot of vets in this space, and I feel that same kind of thing from them. Like, you know, you've dragged us, you've belittled us, you've forgotten us, and now you're going to take our money? No. Daniela, thank you again so much.
And we'll have nothing to do but to go protest, because some of us live on that. So we'll literally won't have jobs. We'll just go protest. So anyone that wants, by the way, my super special operations husband, he is the veteran that like MAGA has wet dreams about, right? Like that's who I'm married to. And he's going to be on the steps of Congress a lot this summer, like in his blues jacket and shorts, like yelling at Congress people. So if anyone wants to come join him, like,
I'm planning on heading down there. I will let you know.
That would be so great. I would love to get together.
Me too. Do you want to plug your books?
Oh, yeah. I've written this one book called Uncultured. It's about growing up in the Children of God religious cults, and then going into the cult of the U.S. Army. It has a 4.9 rating on audio, and it's
awesome. It's awesome.
I sell them signed on my TikTok channel. You can get them straight from me, but you can also listen. It's on Spotify Premium if you're a subscriber. We worked really hard on it. I have just finished last week my final edits on a book called The Culting of America, which will come out on January 20th, the 1-year anniversary of us all living in this cult. It has 36 pages of bibliography. It's my honorary PhD to myself. Okay. And it's a lot about what's going on now. And I read chapters of that and put it on my Patreon. Anyway, come follow me. My channel is fun. We knit and talk about bad guys, and it's a wild time to be an expert on the bad guys. And also, I make hearings.
You make everything. I mean, that's why you're a hero to our show, and I can't thank you enough for always swinging by, and thank you again for texting me, because that was so cool to hear from you. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks,
it's always been a pleasure. Please come back anytime. Always. See you later. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
All right, bye. Love Daniela. Gosh, it was so great. Friends, I hope you all appreciate that, because that was just special that you just joined us for that conversation. Hold on, let me fix this here. That was awesome. I love talking to her. I always feel smarter. Always. Let me fix this. What did I do? Oh, there you go. There we go. Okay. She is a legit hero. Yeah, no doubt about it. An absolute legit hero. So we'll go back to, I know folks probably wanted to talk to her, but I just had so many questions, and you guys know me with more than one or two people on the panel at a time. But hopefully there's some folks that maybe either just Daniela's words and the way in which she says them, her background growing up in a cult and then joining the U.S. Army and her unique experiences there, and just a thing that she mentioned I think is really, really great for us to understand. We're a big nation, and that's to our advantage, right? And don't forget, a lot of what we're hearing now from the administration is intended to fearmonger. And we all have a right to be afraid. There are certain things, especially people who are in marginalized communities. But to Daniela's point, marginalized communities in our country have always been under threat. It's nothing new for them. What's new is white people being under threat. And it will be interesting to see how said white people respond to this. So again, Daniela, thank you again for being here, friend. I really appreciate you. That was awesome. All right. I've got some folks in the box that have requested, and I'd be glad to bring you on up and we can have conversations. Everybody keep tapping and sharing, please. We're struggling with likes, guys. We should be well above 200K. I would appreciate that if you guys could do that for us. And don't forget about the gifting goal, and please consider subscribing. Mishi, how are you today? Mishi Mouse. Mishi Mouse, are you there?
I didn't mean to request that.
No problem. I got you. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Sorry about that. I was driving.
Oh, I'm sorry. Have a good day. I appreciate you very much. Okay. Yeah, she's strong as hell. I love talking to her. Hi, Ann. How are you? Ann Johnson. Are you there? Ann? Guess not. It's been happening a lot lately. Okay. I've got some sound that I'm going to play from Liz Cheney and also from Adam Kinzinger coming up. Hello, Francis.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to request up.
That's okay. I won't take it personally. Like, whatever, dude. Whatever. Anything you want to say while you're here? No. Okay. Somebody want. I know there's a lot of wild tapping going on. Hi.
I'm the last one standing.
You are. You are.
How are you, friend? It's nice to see your face.
Thank you. Yours as well. How's it going?
Well, you see my picture face. You know, it's going. I kind of stopped. I needed like a couple. I just ran over a turtle. Oh no. I'm so sad. Oh, that was sad. Maybe I didn't run it over. I need to go check. All right. Anyway, so I kind of had to stop like watching the news at this point. Like not really the news, but like checking the news. I just kind of wait to hear it from people because my brain needed like a break from all of the shit that was going on. Thank you, Danielle, for giving some people some hope and for saying to wear bright colors and do things that make you happy, because I think that's really important. Self-love, mental health, all of that stuff is super important, right? We know that.
Agreed.
I just, needed a break, but I think that I feel better. I hope you feel better.
Working on it. I appreciate you asking and for checking in on me. I really appreciate that.
Always, always. All right, love you. Just wanted to say hi and bye.
Love you too, friend. See you later. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Sorry about the turtle, friends. Okay. Few things just to kind of catch us up here a little bit. Again, as a reminder, Danielle's book on American, you can also find a link to that in my link tree. If you're interested, I've read it. She also has a book called On American. It's great. If you like to read, especially if you can imagine how riveting, she is when we speak to her. Similarly, she's an incredible author and a great writer. And since I'm a writer as well, I appreciate good writers. Hello, Vision. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. What's on your mind today, friend?
Just trying to stay mentally sound, especially with everything. But yeah, I definitely have been working on the Discord.
Good. Is there something on your mind in particular that you wanted to share?
I just want people to stay together, find your communities, especially if you're worried, check in, because the biggest fear right now is just making sure that everyone is okay. Don't let anyone fall by the wayside, because with everything that's going on, we need to make sure everyone is okay.
That's a really good point. Thank you for that reminder that, we got to make sure that we're looking out for each other, because, the we the people means more now than perhaps it ever has. Thank you for being here, friend. I always appreciate you.
No problem.
Have a good day.
You too.
All right. So we've got a new post. I mentioned this earlier to you guys that the birthright citizens case is before the SCOTUS. So this is what Mr. Trump had to say about that.
Big case today in the United States Supreme Court. Birthright citizenship was not meant for people taking vacations to become permanent citizens of the United States of America and bringing their families with them, all the time laughing at the suckers that we are. The United States of America is the only country in the world that does this. For what reason? Nobody knows, but the drug cartels love it. We are, for the sake of being politically correct, in all caps, stupid country. But in actuality, this is the exact opposite of being politically correct, and it is yet another point that leads to the dysfunction of America. Birthright citizenship is about the babies of slaves. As conclusive proof, the Civil War ended in 1865. The bill went to Congress less than a year later, in 1866, and was passed shortly after that. It had nothing to do with illegal immigration for people who wanted to scam our country from all parts of the world, which they have done for many years. It had to do with Civil War results and the babies of slaves, who our politicians felt correctly needed protection. Please explain this to the Supreme Court of the United States. Again, remember, the Civil War ended in 1865, and the bill goes to Congress in 1866. We didn't have people pouring into our country from all over South America and the rest of the world. It wasn't even a subject. What we had were, quote, caps, babies of slaves. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Good luck with this very important case. God bless the USA. And I also added this. Remember, it all started right after the Civil War ended. It had nothing to do with current day immigration policy. Make America great again.
I don't even know how to unpack that. I don't even know how to unpack that. Wow. I know, he's completely unhinged. He is just unhinged. IEP Mom, how are you today?
I'm doing okay. I really appreciated you having Daniela up. I'm literally in the middle of recoloring my hair blue, so.
Well, there you go. That's a great idea.
And I very much agreed with what she said. Like, since all of this stuff started in January, I made my hair blue. My nails have been obnoxiously bright colors. It's just my one little spot of, okay, but this makes me happy. And this is my take care of myself thing. And obviously, username, I have kids, so trying to help my kids figure out all of this and figure out what's age appropriate for them to understand and what's not is its own struggle. But like, all of this is just crazy. But finding the joy and hearing Daniela talk, she calms me so much. My anxiety gets crazy. I so appreciate you having her up. It helps a lot of people.
Yeah, thank her again for reaching out to me. I agree. I always feel smarter, and you're right. She does have a calming way about her. It's incredible.
And I've always been told, growing up, like, if you don't know something, ask the expert. And she's definitely the expert, especially when it comes to the military stuff. If she says we're too big, then I believe her because she's got all the flowers with all of her amazing experience.
That is very true. And just the cross section of her life, growing up and being born into a, Schmeck's cult, and then, leaving that and joining the U.S. military. It's just an amazing perspective on life and what we live right now and what we see right now, and the hive mind of cults. And I've learned so much from her about that. And again, I'll plug this again. Her book Uncultured is available in her store and her TikTok shop. Also, you can link to it. It's available now on Spotify as an Audible. So check it out. Anything else on your mind today, Mama?
No, I also wanted to push the audiobook. I have her audiobook and it's absolutely amazing. And everybody should, if you don't have the time to sit down and read, like I don't personally, I have an easier time with audio. It's an amazingly well done audiobook.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you again for being here, friend. I appreciate you. Keep painting your hair blue. We'll get through this together. You have a good day, okay? See you later.
Have a good one.
Oh, sorry. All right. So the color for sanity, right? Okay, so I want to kind of go back to a little bit of what we were discussing before that, that amazing break that we had with Daniela. But it's all about the same thing: corruption first, America last. And just some examples of things that she discussed were about how the hierarchy within the cult. It's not just about the enigmatic, charismatic leader. It's about the leadership within the cult. And what we see now, especially on the political side, is that there are people in the cult in leadership positions that are just reinforcing cult speak, justification of taking away people's rights, justification or an attempt to say, well, what the Biden family did was behind closed doors. The corruption of the Trump family is right out in the open. And the expectation is that their base will gobble it up. And you'll hear that. You'll hear it if you go to right-wing spaces, when you're trolling around TikTok and you're going into MAGA lives, they'll say, hey, what Trump's doing is right out, and he's just showing us. It can't be corrupt. He's just showing us the corruption. Well, again, more on the Qatari airliner, because I think this is kind of emblematic of exactly what it is that we're talking about. So this is Mike Johnson, again, responding to questions about the look, the impression that the Qatari airplane gives the American taxpayer.
Been a little busy on reconciliation, so I'm not following all the twists and turns of the Qatar jet. I've certainly heard about it. My understanding is it's not a personal gift to the president; it's a gift to the United States, and other nations give us gifts all the time. But I'm going to leave it to the administration. They know much more about the details of that. Okay, it's not my lane. Yes, sir.
Speaker, you were very critical of President Biden and his family's foreign business dealings. You supported an impeachment inquiry.
I already played that part for you. So again, the attempt, we don't want it, like the attempt to divert your eyes, right? It's the Wizard of Oz scene, right? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, right? So the story gets a little bit deeper when it comes to, the relationship that the Qatari government has with certain members, of his cabinet, for example, like Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi was a lobbyist for the Qatari government. I've got the sound on that if I can find it. So I'll play this for you, and then we can talk about it. So Jordan Klepper, Jordan Klepper from the Daily Show. He did this breakdown for you. So this is the story.
It seems clearly unconstitutional to give the president a gift like this. You know what? What do I know? Attorney General Pam Bondi, what say you?
Attorney General Pam Bondi says the gift is, quote, legally permissible and not a bribe because Trump isn't giving Qatar anything in return.
There you have it, right? Trump hasn't given them anything, and it's been like 36 hours. You know what? I trust her. She's the Attorney General. Just as a quick fact check. What did she do before she was the Attorney General?
We should point out that Bondi previously worked as a foreign lobbyist for the nation of Qatar, earning about $115,000 a month.
Oh, right. It looks bad, but if you have to understand, that's a lot of money, and money feels good to have and to spend. So now I get it.
So again, she was working on behalf of the Qatari government, lobbying the American government to the tune of $115,000 a month that she was paid. That was before she became the Attorney General, before she was the Attorney General of the state of Florida. So Mr. Trump has gone on the record saying, hey, as long as my lawyers, by the way, the Attorney General is not your lawyer. She's the lawyer for the Constitution. But as long as she tells me it's okay, I can do it. So just break the law. And the world that we now live in is breaking the law is okay. Again, how then do we have an objective conversation with people who are Trump supporters when what we see is just blatant corruption? You could be politically agnostic, right? You would, if you were to, again, remove the R, remove the D, remove the blue, the red, the progressive, the liberal, remove all labels and just give them the information and say, okay, look at this. So the Attorney General of this, here, let's follow this. Let's play a game. The Attorney General of the United States, who takes an oath to the Constitution to preserve, protect, and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic, right? The nation's lawyer, if you will, defender of the Constitution, has advised the President of the United States that accepting a gift in violation of the Emoluments Clause would be unconstitutional, unethical, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That same individual used to work on behalf of the same government that gave that plane and was paid $115,000 a month. Do you think that that is a conflict of interest? How do you answer other than abso-fucking-lutely it is? What? Yeah, Tracy, and that's right, Tracy. I forgot all about that. Don't forget, there was an investigation into Trump University, and the investigator was the state of Florida, represented by, wait for it, Pam Bondi, who was the Attorney General to the state of Florida. There was then a meeting at the Oval Office during the first Trump administration, and then within hours of that meeting, Pam Bondi dropped the case. And then we find out that she was gifted a $25,000 donation to her campaign. I don't know. Seems a little shady to me. But again, the world that we now live in is that criminality is justification for protecting America. Remember, this was a while ago. Trump said, you're not breaking the law if you're doing what's right for America. Is doing what's right for America accepting a $400 million jet? That's going to, by the way, it's going to cost, guesstimates are between $2.5, $3, $4, $5 billion to rent. And then that jet then gets gifted to Trump when he leaves the White House. And then what happens? We're still going to need a new jet. So we spend $5.5 billion taxpayer money to retrofit a jet from the Qatari government, who, by the way, supports the H group financially. And then we're going to have to spend more taxpayer dollars to get an actually new and improved, Boeing jet for the new the new Air Force One. Like you feel like the plane is a Trojan horse? I agree. Sabrina. I agree. They can make, I saw Tizzy do this video. They can make tracking devices now that are so tiny and so light that you can put them on the wings of a monarch butterfly. Okay? So do we not think that hidden somewhere in a strand of carpet that there could be a tracking device and or a listening device on the new Air Force One? Right? So this to me is just a big stroke of his fucking ego. So listen to this sound. This is interesting. Interesting in a bad way. But this speaks to the fact that this whole thing to him is just about status, right? So this was sound from yesterday, defending the plane. Okay? This is what he had to say about it. And this is just embarrassing. This is the United States president, friends. This is just embarrassing. This is a dick measuring contest.
They had a plane, not a new plane at all, but they had a plane. And you know, these planes, the plane that you're in right now is almost 40 years old. And when you land and you see Saudi Arabia and you see UAE and you see Qatar and you see all these, and they have these brand new Boeing 747s mostly, and you see ours next to it. This is like a totally different plane. It's much smaller. It's much less impressive, as impressive as it is. And, you know, we're the United States of America. I believe that we should have the most impressive plane. So anyway, so they said to me, we would like to, in effect, we would like to make a gift. You've done so many things. And we'd like to make a gift to the Defense Department, which is where it's going. And I said, well, that's nice. Now, some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept the gift? We're giving to everybody else. Why wouldn't I accept the gift? Because it's going to be a couple of years, I think, before the Boeings are finished. And they'll be wonderful when they're finished, but that's a long time.
What? Again, it's a dick measuring contest. The Dreamliner 747 finally appointed with this and that and this and that just looks better on the runway next to Air Force One. Remember, this is the same guy who's now praising the Qatari royal family. The same guy who speaks with reverence towards MBS, who unalived a New York Times journalist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This speaks again to our topic today. Corruption first, America last. We've got more reporting. This is from a Chinese company who is now investing. I don't want to play that just yet. I'll get back to that. I want to find the sound that I played yesterday. Everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. Guys, we're not even at 200K. Friends, you're letting me down. What's going on? What have I done? What have I done? See if I can find this, because this was the same. Okay, this is the ass kissing. So listen to this.
When I was here last, it was.
This is when he was speaking in Doha, okay, in Saudi.
Amazing, because when I was here last, it was fine. It was doing good. And then I see the things that you're doing here and in your countries. It's just incredible. What you're doing is, the whole world is talking about it. The whole world is watching us. Look at all the news over there, the fake news. Look at them. The whole world is talking about what you're doing, and you're the envy of the world.
Okay, I want you to remember what he just said there, that you're the envy of the world. He's referring to Saudi Arabia. Okay, so let's just check on something for a second, because I did a little bit of research on this as well. The Saudi, how do I want to classify this? The Saudi, how they address human rights, maybe. So let's talk about that for a second. All right. Where is it? Okay. Saudi Arabia faces ongoing scrutiny for its human rights record, with concerns spanning from suppression of free expression to abuse against migrant workers and women. Recent reports from organizations such as Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the U.S. State Department highlight several key issues. Suppression of free speech and dissent. Remember, he said, the world is watching and we admire you and the world envies you. Wipe that shit off your nose. Arbitrary detentions and harsh sentences. Okay, these are accusations made against the Saudi government. Individuals, including human rights defenders, journalists, and social media users, have been detained and sentenced to lengthy prison terms or even unaliving for peaceful expression or criticism of authorities. Sound familiar? Travel bans. Some activists, after serving prison sentences, remain under travel bans restricting their freedom of movement. Sound familiar? Judicial practices and capital punishment. In 2024, Saudi Arabia unalived 198 individuals, the highest number in 3 decades, for offenses including smug-related crimes and political dissent. Have we heard rhetoric about things like that? We certainly have. Use of torture. Reports indicate that torture and ill treatment are used to extract confessions, which are then admitted as evidence in trials. When people are just vanished and disappeared, we have no idea where they go. We have no idea what's happening to them. Women's rights, guardianship system. Despite recent reforms, women still face restrictions under the male guardianship system, affecting their autonomy and various aspects of life. What was that bill? Let me get back to that. What was that bill? HR, women's health. I got to see if I can find this. Is this the one? This might be it. The Women's Health Protection Act, is that the one? No, that's not the one. What is the one? Basically, it's the intent was to frame it as women, we're looking out for you, but when we find language of the text that women basically have to get permission from the men in their life to receive health care, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's some of the language that's being used in our government to mirror countries apparently that he admires and idolizes. So again, women's rights, crackdown on activists. Women's rights activists have been detained in Saudi and allegedly subjected to torture and SA while in custody. Okay. Religious freedom and minority rights. Discrimination against Shia Muslims. The Shia minority faces systemic discrimination, including limitations on religious practices and unequal treatment in the justice system. Okay. Restrictions on non-Muslim religions. Public practice of non-Muslim religions is prohibited, and religious minorities face legal and social discrimination. Don't forget, we now have a faith office in the White House that says that's there because of quote unquote anti-Christian rhetoric. Okay. Migrant workers and labor rights. Abuse of migrant workers. Migrant workers, particularly in domestic and construction sectors, often face exploitation, deportation, or including of non-payment of wages, poor working conditions, and physical abuse. Unalivings on work sites. Reports have highlighted preventable causes of death of migrant workers on job sites with inadequate investigations and compensation for families. Border security and treatment of migrants. Unalivings at the Yemeni border. Saudi border guards have been accused of unaliving hundreds of Ethiopian migrants attempting to cross from Yemen using machine guns and mortars. Okay. Legal reforms and international criticism. A leaked draft of Saudi Arabia's first written penal code has been criticized for falling short of international human rights standards, particularly regarding freedom of expression and gender equality. And human rights organizations and foreign governments continue to call on Saudi Arabia to implement meaningful reforms and uphold international human rights obligations. Legal reforms. Although progress has been made, in 2018, Saudi Arabia lifted the ban on women driving. Since 2019, women over the age of 21 can obtain passports and travel abroad without male guardian approval, but there are exceptions. Female labor force participation has increased to 34% as of 2022, and women's literacy rates have improved, although slightly, and female university enrollment now surpasses that of men. Women in Saudi Arabia are saying this is enough. Male guardianship. Despite reforms, the male guardianship system remains entrenched, requiring women to obtain male guardian consent for marriage and other personal matters. Personal status law. The 2022 codified personal status law enshrines male guardianship and lacks adequate protections against domestic violence. And while not legally mandated, societal norms continue to press women to adhere to conservative dress codes. I think my mod team is amazing. I'm sure you guys are probably on it. It's the Women's Health. I want to find it. I'm gonna spend a minute here. I think it's the Women's Health Protection Act. What's it called? Women's Health Protection Act. Is it this one? 118th Congress. I think it's this one. Stand by. Because I think it's important to read. It's important to read that now. Because it applies. Where is it? Is it HR 701? Is this the one? No, I think that's it. I gotta find it. Mods, you guys know what I'm talking about? I think it's about. Hold on, I'll find it. Yes, buddy, I agree. HB 12, is this it? I don't think that's it either. Anyway, well, again, very similar language that women have to get permission from the men in their life. Father, husband, ministers, you name it. It's the one about just healthcare in general. Like you're not going to be allowed to access healthcare or whatever that might be. HR 7, that's it. HR 7. HR 7. Women's health. Hold on. Yes, this is it. Okay. So this is the text. So HR 7, the title of the bill, thank you guys. The title of the bill is recognizing the importance of access to comprehensive, high-quality, life-affirming medical care for women of all ages. Sounds great. Then you read down the bill. It says, whereas healthcare for women should emphasize the whole woman, including her physical, mental, and spiritual wellness. Sounds great. Whereas all women should feel empowered and equipped with the knowledge to listen to their body and advocate for their health. Sounds awesome. Whereas women of all ages should have access to comprehensive, convenient, compassionate, life-affirming, high-quality medical services. But wait, there's more. Where is the rest? That's not the one that I'm thinking about, is it? That might have changed it. There's one particular line that is disturbing that is totally fucking Handmaid's Tale. Okay. Whereas healthcare for women should also address the needs of men, families, and communities as they relate to women's healthcare. Whereas healthcare for women should also address the needs of men, families, and communities as they relate to women's healthcare. No wonder the Trump administration admires Saudi Arabia and other autocratic regimes who do not give a fuck about women's rights to their body. Nice. Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. Okay. Oops, sorry, Heather. I didn't mean to send you that. That was my mistake. You don't have to accept that. I just pushed the button by accident. Okay. Wow. That's crazy. Hi, Heather. I'm sorry I didn't mean to send that invite. My apologies.
No, that's okay. I was like, well, I'll just accept real quick so I can show you that I did the best form of flattery and painted my nails the same color as you.
Dude, nice.
Yes.
I saw your
Good
nails
work.
yesterday, and I had a nail appointment, and I was like, Steve, I'm copying you. The highest form of flattery is copying. So
I appreciate you, friend. Again, joy is resistance, and right. And this is the mark to say that I absolutely did not vote for Donald Trump. Yep. Yep. Good for you. I appreciate you doing that, friend. That's very kind of you.
Of course.
You're awesome.
Of course. Okay, well, I'm getting ready for work. I've been listening all morning. Sorry I'm not tapping. It's because I'm getting ready for
It's all
work.
good. I got you. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Have a great day, Steve.
You too. See you later. Bye. That's awesome. Appreciate that. Fabulous. Resistance. Joy is resistance. Color is resistance. Don't be like gray and opaque and like, hide in the shadows. Anachronista, how are you, friend?
Hi, friend. I'm not too bad. Trying to get by in my country that's penalising disabled people. So, yay, that's fun. Authoritarianism the world over. I know, right?
I know. And I'm glad you called that out because it's not just here. We've seen this rise. And I think it's important that we call it all out and that we're recognizing human rights violations everywhere.
Well, quite often, and I'm sure Erica has said it before, when America sneezes, Britain catches a cold. And so we are watching in horror at what's happening to you guys and also very worried that it'll come down the pipeline to us because that's just usually what happens. We've seen with the Supreme Court judgment on what a woman is that the transphobia is rife in Britain, and we know that the culture war against trans people started in Britain because of groups like the Heritage Foundation that started lobbying our politicians to say, we want you to follow our Christian agenda. So that's quite scary, but we don't hold it against you. We hold it against them.
Yeah, I get that. Well, but maybe this is what America is, though. So we can't. We have to. We have to. I mean, yes, we didn't vote for it, but this is what our country is now. We have to kind of accept that we are an oligarchic autocracy, in my opinion.
I think
we have to fix it.
You can accept it whilst also resisting. I think accepting doesn't mean that you lay down and placate people. It means that you are saying, yep, this is the environment that we're in right now. How do we focus on affecting change?
I totally agree with that. It's well said. Very well said. Very well said.
Yeah. The struggle is real, right?
It is. It absolutely is. Anything else? Anything else on your mind that you would like to share with us, friend?
No, it's fine. My cunning device was tapping away, and then suddenly I realized I was with you. So I put my cunning device back to its task.
Hey now, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, Anachronista. I appreciate you very much, friend. Thanks a lot for being here.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Day. Thank you very much. See you later. Me too. So the Supreme Court, the oral arguments have been started for the birthright citizenship conversation. So we're getting some reporting from our amazing team. There's a decision. Let me see if I can read this real quickly. There was a case that was brought up as reference in Wong versus the United States. The question was, is a child who was born in the United States to Chinese citizen parents who are lawful permanent residents of the United States a U.S. citizen under the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment? In the summary of the decision, thank you, Tiffany, because Wong was born in the United States and his parents were not employed in any diplomatic or official capacity under the Emperor of China, the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment automatically makes him a U.S. citizen. Justice Horace Gray authored the opinion on behalf of a 6-2 majority in which the court established the parameters of the concept known as jus soli, the citizenship of children born in the U.S. to non-citizens. Justice Joseph McKenna took no part in the consideration or decision of the case. Thomas is asking questions now. Okay, so we're into it. They're into the case. They're having dialogue around it, and we will see we will see what our Supreme Court has to say about this. Be very interesting. We'll be watching closely, and I'll report on it for you guys tomorrow. Good morning, friend. How are you today? Minnie? Hi, Minnie.
Hi, good morning. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What's on your mind?
Okay, so I'm at work. I'm on my Bluetooth. I just wanted to come up and something's bothering me, and I hope it's okay to talk about it because everything that's going on. I live in Palm Beach County, West Palm Beach, Florida. I listen to a radio station all the time, so the morning show. I can't listen to it anymore because they're running commercials with Kristi Noem bragging about this whole ICE stuff, about how they're deporting these people. And I'm like, are you kidding me? A commercial? And I'm like, okay, so who's paying for this? Is our tax dollars going to this? Why is it needed? I'm just a little upset, and I know people are allowed to come out here and say stuff and just get off their chest. Other thing is, I'm glad you take time for yourself, for your mental health.
Please
do that.
Appreciate you saying that. But yeah, this is the space to get stuff off your chest. Feel free.
Thank you. That's really all I wanted to say. I want people to know that it's going on. That's all. It's a lot. There's so much going on that I'm sure people don't know things are going on.
Yeah, I mean, there is so much that's going on, and we do our best to navigate through all of it. But there's only so many hours in the day. But keep in mind, though, that is by design. The design by authoritarian rules and regimes is to overwhelm the masses, and in an attempt to try to sneak things through the cover of darkness. But I appreciate you calling that out, friend. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Take care of your own peace.
Thank you for letting me.
You got it. See you later. All right, bye. All right. I have a little bit more sound that I wanted to play. This is Adam Kinzinger giving some advice to the Democrats, and I think this is I would hope that they would listen, because I've been saying this shit for a long time too. So let's see what Mr. Kinzinger had to say. I don't agree with his voting record, but I respect him for what he's done. Okay, so this is what Adam had to say.
Okay, so for this Qatar jet thing, two things. Number one, don't let Donald Trump tell you this is somehow saving money for the United States of America. It's not, because he takes the jet with him after he's president.
Yeah.
It goes to the Trump Presidential Library, which means, by the way, it is a gift to him because he can keep flying it through the library.
Correct.
Secondly, the United States has to buy another jet then for the next president.
Correct.
How are we saving any money at all? Second thing, to Democrats, I want to say this. Number one, you can force a vote on this because Congress has to approve something this big, according to Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. Secondly, you guys need to be making it clear every day to any country that locks up American citizens or hosts American prisoners, as an example, or that is, bribing the current president of the United States, that when Democrats take control, those countries will pay for that action so that they know that eventually they're going to have to pay for that. That may actually tamp down on corruption today.
It's really good advice, right? Stand out there. Who's the best spokesperson? Should be Pete, not a member of Congress, but he's probably the best spokesperson there is in the country. He should say that. Go out on the news, say, if I were foreign nations, that are bribing the president now to get special favors or concessions, I would just keep in mind that when Democrats regain control, because they will, that you will be punished for that, because that is corruption. That's not how our government works. Just so that you're on notice. Let's see if they take that advice, right? Let's see if they take that advice, because I think that's a really, really good point, and I'm so glad that he made it. Let me just check over here real quick on some things. Oh, Marcus, thank you for your $10 on Cash App. I appreciate you very much. Also, thank you to Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. That's very kind of you as well. I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. I love you, friends. Angela, thank you so much. You want me to take Erica out? I promise I will. Yes. Thank you for your kind contribution to the exorbitant Erica gift fund. I appreciate you. You guys are very kind. Appreciate y'all very, very much. Navy Vet. Sold 1 million shares of Trump coin on Liberation Day. Of course she did. Of course she did. Navy Vet, how are you, friend?
I'm doing pretty good. Well, the plane is his. Yes, we understand that. But I think we should look past the plane, because not only is he setting up deals for his golf courses over there in Qatar and Gaza and Vietnam and all that, these deals are being made with T groups. He's talking directly to Al Qaeda. He's talking directly to Hamas, not these governments.
That's exactly right. And don't forget, one of the single biggest funders of the H group is the Qatari government.
Yes. And I think that's being missed, and everybody's not drawing that out along with, yes, this is corruption, it's max. Nobody's saying, wait, he's talking to the T groups that we fight on a regular basis.
And making deals with Iran to basically stick it to Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, again, this is what happens when you want to get in the sandbox with a fascist who doesn't give a malignant narcissist fascist who doesn't give a fuck about anything or anyone but himself. So Netanyahu thought he could convince Trump to do all these kinds of things to turn Gaza into the Middle Eastern Riviera. Meanwhile, Trump's cutting deals with Iran. Right? So sure. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's good to see. That's the American government for you right now. That is the autocrat in charge, who doesn't give a shit about anybody as long as they can make him wealthier, make him feel more important. Yep, lovely.
Yeah, and our wonderful oversight committee that does nothing.
Does nothing and has the ability to do it. They certainly spent a lot of time and taxpayer dollars investigating the Biden crime family and found absolutely fucking nothing. Not a damn thing. But if they did, lock their asses up, throw them in jail, throw away the key. I don't give a shit. Lock them up. Who cares? If they're criminals, they're criminals. Lock them up.
Right. Oh, thanks for having me up. I just thought I'd put that in there because I think people are not paying attention to that part.
I appreciate that, brother. You're absolutely right about it. Have a good day. Thanks for your service.
Right.
See you later.
Thank you.
All right, bye. Yeah, he's right. He's right. There's just everywhere we look, every single where we look, there's corruption. Think about the promises, and don't forget about the AI generated images of Bibi Netanyahu and Trump sitting down in lounge chairs drinking cocktails in the new Middle Eastern Riviera as we supplant Palestinians and expect other countries like Jordan and Egypt and others to take them. So Netanyahu gets exactly what he wants at that time, right? At that time. Now, countries who have always been enemies of Israel and doesn't want Israel on the map, he is now cozying up to, including the countries that are funding the H group, like Iran, like Qatar, like Saudi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Keep your friends close. Keep your enemies closer. So another example of some corruption for you. This has to do with a small Chinese company and crypto. Yeah, this is interesting too.
New report in the New York Times, there's a new connection to the president's cryptocurrency plans. Here's the headline: tiny company with China ties announces big purchase of Trump cryptocurrency. It's a fascinating story. The Times reports that, quote, the firm, which produces content for TikTok, recorded no revenue last year, but it announced this week that a mysterious stock sale would allow it to invest heavily in the Trump meme coin.
Nice, right? Nothing to see here. I have that story somewhere. Yep. Story is a company that was non-existent, has no revenue, no assets. They only make content on TikTok. And all of a sudden, through some strange stock deal that no one can really understand, they have suddenly been able to make a $300 million investment into the Trump meme coin. Nothing to see here. Just a day in the life. All right, what else have I got that I wanted to cover off on? I think I mentioned to you guys yesterday that when Elon Musk finally leaves Doge, that Russ Vought, the author of Project 2025, is going to step in and become the new supervisor of waste, fraud, and abuse. Okay, that's good. All right. And then we also have reporting that, hold on. This is what I want to play. So this one is interesting too, because now I've got to wrap little capitalism. One of the arguments that was made by Stephen was that Kamala Harris was a commie because she wanted to price gouge. I mean, she wanted to pass legislation that would prevent price gouging. So corporations like Big Pharma healthcare in particular wouldn't continue to rage and grape the American consumer to the tune of, erroneous fees, predatory lending, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he went on the record through Twitter, through X, through all sorts of, whatever groups of circles that he runs in, literally calling her a commie. Ironic how things have changed, though. Isn't it interesting?
Trump just copied one of Kamala Harris's campaign promises, and the MAGA hypocrisy is on full display. 1,000 years ago, in August 2024, Kamala Harris revealed her plan to go after price gouging.
And I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gouging on food.
And in true MAGA fashion, Stephen Miller, Trump's loyal megaphone, went on a Twitter rampage. Kamala Marks, he named her, warning that price controls will turn America into a land of shortages and breadlines. Commie's gonna commie, he painted Harris as Comrade Kamala and predicted economic apocalypse if we dare go after corporations. Now, guess who's pushing the exact same plan? That's right. Donald Trump just signed an executive order slashing drug prices by forcing Big Pharma to match the most favored nation prices from countries with, you guessed it, government price controls. Looks like Stephen Miller must have lost his password for X because he's been real quiet over there. No more communist rants, no more warnings of imminent famine, just the sound of crickets and the faint hum of hypocrisy.
It's funny how things work out that way. Keep in mind, we talk about this, the poison and the cure. There were already legislation in place, including some in the Inflation Reduction Act, that cap the cost of pharmaceuticals for seniors, right? So he writes an EO, Trump writes an EO to remove that protection for seniors. And then weeks later, as the dust has settled and hoping that people would forget about this, comes out with a new favored nation status pricing, which again is an attempt to keep pharmaceutical companies, big pharma, whomever else, from ripping off consumers. And his base will gobble it up thinking, what a great idea Trump had. I don't have to pay $12,000 for my Viagra no more. And Meemaw gets a discount on her insulin. Way to go, Trump. BT dubs. White supremacy is when Donald Trump bans 1,600 plus vetted Afghan refugees who helped the USA against the T-ban, but proudly accepts white African or South Africans as refugees to the USA for no apparent reason except that they're white. Reminder that Trump is pro-apartheid and a racist. I have to wrap, friends. Mods, who are we going to raid? Who should we raid, you guys? Who's out there that we should raid? Our usual suspects are probably live. Is Mo live? Mo can be live. Is RJ live? RJ. Let's raid RJ. We'll raid RJ. We raided Danny. We haven't raided RJ in a while. We're going to raid RJ. Okay, friends, everybody, thank you for being here today. I know there's a lot to uncover. I want people to use the advice that was given by Danny to say, listen, it's okay to be whatever it is that you're feeling, but there are more of us. There are significantly more of us than there are of them. We have the truth on our side. We have humanity on our side. When you're asking your friends out there, ask them to look in the mirror and ask them, how could you possibly be willing to not vote for clean water, clean air, access to public education, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Don't ever forget that, all right? I'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time. And don't forget, we're going to raid RJ. Tell him we said hi. Thank you, mods. Love you guys. Chat, thank you. You are the smartest